the perfect home on the planet. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 201 Luo Wang, did you see it? What's wrong? Shang Tenin asked from the side. Feiyu looked again, and the officer had already turned his head back, staring at the stage with a straight posture. Nothing, she paused, remembering that she had not finished introducing the program Li Hero to Shang Tenin, and added, passionate. Shang Tenin smiled and asked casually, Feiyu, have you received singing training? I used to have ladies' classes. My dad said I had to learn a little bit. Feiyu was a little depressed. This way, even if I'm not a genius, I can look like a versatile person. I see. Your father. Feiyu suddenly raised her hand and hooked it around Shang Tenin's arm, and with a little force, she spun him around. Let's go over there and see it more clearly. Shang Tenin looked at her, and without saying a word, he smiled and said, okay, do you want to drink again? If not, I'll get it. He took the wine glass from Feiyu's hand and walked with her arm until she stopped. What's wrong? He asked in a low voice. The voice of the singer on the stage was as broad as a grassland, covering the entire audience. Feiyu leaned her head against his shoulder, her lips moving. My dad, you should call me father-in-law. Shang Tenin was slightly surprised, then said, okay. After a while, he lowered his eyes and saw Feiyu leaning against him, watching the show seriously. He raised his eyelids and watched the show as well, not caring about the stiff half of his body. The loud soprano duet finally ended. Feiyu let go of Shang Tenin and applauded them warmly. Shall we go to Mr. Yin's place? The neighbors are all over there. Shang Tenin looked at her and said. Okay. Feiyu and Shang Tenin took 2 steps together, and then she reached out to hook one of his arms, this time loosely, like a couple going to party together. Shang Tenin looked at her and let her go. Sister Shang, welcome back triumphantly. Yin Dechen clapped his hands. Several neighbors joined in the quiet applause, leaving Feiyu completely bewildered. I was just singing backing vocals, and it's been a while since I finished. Ha, how modest, Mrs. Shang, don't be so modest. Our Mrs. Shang is truly multi-talented. Mrs. Yin beamed, boasting, look at my discerning eyes. The laughter deepened. Everyone, stop staring at Feiyu. She'll be even more embarrassed. Shang Tenin interrupted with a smile. Mrs. Yin, aren't you busy looking after Mr. Yin? There's only one finale left, so the propaganda department won't have much to do. Mrs. Yin glanced up and immediately said excitedly, hush, it's starting. It's the guards' performance. Only Deputy Director Shang in our propaganda department has ever seen them rehearse. Look, the stage was completely dark. The audience waited in silence. Soon, the sound of war drums, as if from a distant source, grew increasingly intense. Just as everyone's hearts raced to the beat of the drums, a massive formation suddenly appeared in the darkness. Luo Wang, did you see that? I'm coming towards you. War drums roared, and people roared. Oh my god, Deputy Director Shang is singing in person. Mrs. Yin was so excited that she clapped Mr. Yin on the back. Feiyu was also quite shocked. Although Deputy Director Shang was thin and short of staff, the program he put together didn't seem forced at all. The stage gradually brightened, as if dawn was about to come. The dozens of soldiers shouted and leaped in the darkness, as if blood began to surge. Luo Wang, did you see that? I'm coming towards you. With my brother and my beloved wife. The stage finally brightened, and dawn arrived as promised. The rapid beat of drums with horse hooves suddenly stopped. Dozens of soldiers, dressed in black battle uniforms and painted faces, appeared in full force with 3 thumps of heavy boots. Their agility and vigor were so strong that the audience cheered like thunder. Military boxing, long and short strikes. This is military boxing, long and short strikes. Yes, Deputy Director Shang was clever enough. Time was tight, so he combined the military boxing, long and short strikes, with music and his own backstage singing, to create a show that captivated the entire audience. Luo Wang, did you see that? I'm coming to you. Bringing my dowry, my husband. The family members screamed. Mrs. Yin excitedly let go of Mr. Yin, turned around and hugged Feiyu, who was nearby, jumping up and down. Feiyu had never had such extensive and intimate contact with anyone before. Both of her arms were caressed by Mrs. Yin, and she froze. Shuang Tian'an was abruptly separated from them. He watched as Mrs. Gu and Mrs. Jen also excitedly rushed over to hug him, and could only stand stupidly on the sidelines, staring at Fei Zi's flushed face. The women in the audience cheered, and the men in the audience were stunned. Luo Wang, did you see that? I'm coming to you. The starship cast off, and the people set out on their journey. The starship casts off, and the journey begins, the guards sang along, their blood boiling, some mimicking the movements of the soldiers on stage. Floating screens suddenly appeared, illuminating the crowds below. Wow, everyone looked up. Luo Wang, do you see that? I'm coming towards you. Strength is nowhere to be found, and my heart is already bursting with joy. Damn it, brothers, follow. Strength is nowhere to be found, and my heart is already bursting with joy. A powerful wave of voices radiated from the center of the stage. A large number of men in the audience followed the rhythm with long and short beats. The floating screens lit up everywhere, 1, 2, 3, then swirled into trihedrons, quadrilaterals, and pentahedrons. No mistake. One song, one release, one content, 1/6, 1/9, one book, one bar. Over the venue, shimmering floating screens hung like transparent crystal lanterns, reflecting the dancing figures in every area and on every side. Luo Wang, do you see that? I'm coming towards you. The person you've waited for 1,000 years is me. The person you've waited for 100 billion years is me. A thunderous roar echoed through the venue. Fei Zi stared wide-eyed at the 5 curved floating screens outside the podium, like assembled starships, advancing and crushing towards them. Images flashed across the screens, each of them showing the men of the conscripted regiment. They followed the music, practicing military boxing techniques with the soldiers on stage. Confined to the space, each man exercised his excitement yet restrained himself, surrounding his wife with punches. The floating screens above her head rapidly spun and merged, forming a trihedron. Nearby, the 4-sided prism screens swirled and exploded, their dazzling points of light instantly transforming into 5 curved screens. Each transformation drew cheers from the radiating crowd. The gathering of 5 curved screens surged forward, only a hair's breadth away. Fei Zi, are you okay? The music raged like a storm, and another section was about to begin. Feiyu looked at Shuang Tian'an, who was staring at her with a smile on his face. No, her voice was completely drowned out by the music. Shuang Tian'an smiled even more, lifted one of her hands, and placed the wine glass in her hand. Hold it for me. Feiyu subconsciously grasped the round and thin legs of the frozen stone wine glass produced on the planet Pumble, which still had the warmth of Shuang Tian'an's hand. Shuang Tian'an had his hands free, so he turned around and swung his arms, lowering his waist and wiping his palms. The 3-arched screen exploded. A quadrangular screen reflected his starting gesture. Yin Dechen, Jeguanqing and the others shouted and clapped their hands. Feiyu looked up at the floating screen, which had now been directly combined into a 5 curved screen. On the screen, Shuang Tian'an danced around her and threw a punch, leaving her a few centimeters of space. Her skirt went over the line, brushed against his trouser legs, and then fell down softly. Shuang Tian'an stepped sideways to widen the gap, and bumped into Jeguanqing next door. In the life-threatening music, Feiyu tilted her head back to drink a big sip of nutrient solution, and shouted, "It's okay, just dance." Shuang Tian'an just smiled and said nothing. He continued to walk around her, punching and singing along with his sound. Luo Wang, did you see that? I'm coming towards you. From now on, remember my name. Crazy. Mrs. Yin turned her neck and stared at her husband, muttering, the propaganda department is done, and now we don't have to worry about no results in the first assignment. Luo Wang, did you see that? Chapter 202 The Last Night in the Civilization Radiation Zone. The bathroom door slid open, and Shuang Tian'an emerged, his hair damp. He glanced sideways and asked, haven't you finished filling it out yet, Fei Zi? Her hair loose and her brow furrowed, seemed to hear her for a long moment before she hummed a sound. Shuang Tian'an didn't bother her, leaving the empty sofa beside her and sitting on the floor. He leaned against the wall and opened his own virtual screen. A form popped up, and he quickly scanned it. Filling in all the information correctly, he closed it and set it aside. He clicked on the family library and found the book A Guide to New Family Life among a pile of robotics treatises. A closer look revealed it wasn't the Mamang edition, but the Alliance Comprehensive Edition, a bonus copy given to the caregiver. That was right. Shuang Tianan noticed Feiyu had added a reading note to the second chapter. I've read it. Very inspiring. He couldn't help but smile, thinking he should write more reflections. This was the prescription they had received after their family care program. Each person must read a shared section every day and write a reflection. The reading record would automatically feed into their health assessment system. Shuang Tianan excerpted a profound quote, "Home is the smallest functional unit of human heritage, and for each individual, it is a lifetime residence." That made 2 lines of reflections, so he added his own. Indeed, it felt a little short, and after a few paragraphs, he spotted a good sentence and took another one. Building a new home is an incredibly exciting and thrilling experience. He fluently wrote his conclusion. We are all working hard to learn how to do this extremely challenging task well. Okay, done. Shuang Tianan added his own reflections to Feiyu's phrase and closed the book. He looked up. Feiyu still had her head bowed, her scattered hair covering half her face, revealing only the tip of her nose and the center of her brows, which were contemplative. Without saying a word, he lowered his brows and opened another copy of the New Star Development History he had copied from Feiyu, flipped to a random page, and continued reading against the wall. Slowly, he immersed himself in it. Okay, Feiyu tilted her head and stared at Shuang Tianan for quite a while. When she saw him look up at the sound, his eyes were warm and clear. She confirmed the upload in that second. She turned off the virtual screen, straightened her waist slightly, and breathed a sigh of relief. I submitted it. Have you submitted it? Shuang Tianan was originally waiting for her to submit it together. When he heard that she had submitted it, he smiled lightly, touched his fingers lightly, and sent a boarding information form to the conscription office. Submitted it. Are we boarding the ship at 5 in the morning in the third batch? Feiyu stood up and walked towards the bed, asking casually. Yes, you sleep well, I will call you. Shuang Tianan saw Feiyu coming to the bed, so he naturally turned off the lights and skillfully opened the sleeping bag in the dark. He heard a few light rustlings from the other side of the bed. He waited for a while, and the sound soon disappeared. Good night, he laid down and said. This was their usual sleeping routine. Good night. Feiyu didn't fall asleep immediately. Usually, if she was tired from work and training and had no plans to think about, she could fall into deep sleep quickly. But tonight was different. She was still hesitant about something. Tonight was her last night in the irradiated area of the Alliance civilization. She wrote this in her Luo Wang notebook. Although everyone praised Luo Wang so highly and had beautiful thoughts about him, she always knew that it was a primitive and barren planet waiting to be developed. It had not yet been connected to human civilization and was suffering. The recruiting office required every member of the Luo Wang Corps who was about to board the Chuxiu to fill out a will on the boarding information form. It was really annoying to encounter such a thing before leaving. Although Feiyu understood that it was just the recruiting office's thorough procedures and it was a coincidence that they would die before achieving their goal, she couldn't help but feel annoyed while writing. She had such a huge fortune, but no one to entrust it to. In fact, if she no longer needed it, it would be miserable no matter who she entrusted it to. Feiyu turned over, making a rare unladylike sound of rustling the quilt. She thought for a moment and decided not to tell Shuang Tianan about the contents of her will. A will only takes effect after death. She would just be a bunch of nonsense while she was alive, and there was no need to add any extra burden to Shuang Tianan. In fact, he was not a suitable fund manager. He would definitely live in Luoyang in the future, so how could he take care of her affairs in Mamen? Have children. That night, Feiyu, inspired by the fact that everyone had to write a will before boarding the ship, began to consider the necessity of having children. Dad's things must be passed down, otherwise his father would not be happy. Regardless of whether she could find a true spouse in the future, she still had to have children throughout her life. Feiyu made a plan to go to Luoyang to gain some experience, and she would start doing this after returning to Mamen. Feiyu, can't sleep, not bad. Her thoughts were interrupted and she suddenly opened her eyes. The small bedroom was dark, and Shuang Tianan's voice sounded so clear that she felt a little sorry. I'm sorry, did I disturb you? No. Shuang Tianan paused and asked, Feiyu, at the conference hall, after you finished singing, you seemed a little different. Is there something wrong? Different? Feiyu asked curiously. She didn't feel that there was anything different about herself. After thinking for a while, she said, oh, and frowned, dragging her voice, and didn't say anything else. What's wrong? Shang Tanin asked with concern. I met a person, or should I say, I heard a name, Feiyu said slowly. It sounds a bit familiar. Is he also from Maman? Shang Tanin asked, and the appearance of the two officers appeared in his mind. No, he changed his nationality. Feiyu frowned, recalling the scene, still unsure. It's just that the name is a little, she chose the right word, like my ex-fiancé. Shang Tanin almost jumped up. Even though he was usually calm, he couldn't help but break his self-discipline of not facing Feiyu when sleeping. He turned his head towards the bed, staring at the bulging figure and asked, You don't know your ex-fiancé? The one before me. As he spoke, he strung together many details. There's only one person before you. Feiyu mistakenly thought that Shang Tanin understood it as the predecessor of his fiancé and corrected him. There is no such thing as the predecessor. She was a little annoyed when she talked about the first formal rival in her life. His name is Qi Changgong. Today I heard someone named Changgong. I wonder if it is a coincidence that we have the same name, or did I hear it wrong? Shang Tanin turned back for a long while, and sighed at the dark ceiling for some reason. You heard it right, it should be him. Feiyu was surprised. How do you know? Are you talking about the guard officer standing next to Deputy Director Shang today? Shang Tanin sighed seriously. When I received the Boken Star blanket, I felt that he looked at me a little strangely. I didn't think much about it at the time. I thought he recognized me and was checked by him during the night patrol. The blanket he gave out? You were also checked by him during the night patrol. Feiyu raised her voice. Why did he check you? It's not just me, it's us. Shang Tanin sighed again. Do you really not recognize faces at all, or have you never seen him? That day, we moved to the river valley in the middle of the night to set up camp. A patrol passed by and asked a few questions. Do you remember? He was among them. As the narration progressed, Shang Tanin remembered more details. He looked at you and called you madam. Feiyu snorted and said regretfully, I didn't pay attention at the time and don't remember it. She couldn't go back to the past and stare at the farmhand, so she quickly put all these things aside, followed the chain of logic, and immediately asked, You don't even know this person, how can you be sure of him? His surname is Qi, and I heard him chatting with another officer of the guard army. His ancestral home is in Armaman. Shang Tanin couldn't help shaking his head. He didn't know why Feiyu was so slow in dealing with people. He didn't think so at the time, but now thinking back, Officer Qi didn't say much to Feiyu, but in the limited short contacts, his eyes were full of stories. He reminded her, when you looked back, he was also looking at you. Did you notice that he was looking at me? Feiyu snorted again. The man did make eye contact with her. After a while, she said depressedly, Okay, his surname is Qi, his name is Changgong, and his ancestral home is in Maman, so it's him. How many times have you met before? Do you have no impression at all? Shang Tanin was speechless. I met him once or twice when I was a child, and then the last time during the vacation of my second year of graduate school. We negotiated to cancel our engagement. Feiyu compared Qi Changgong's current and past appearances in her mind, but she had never taken a good look at that man, either now or in the past. She could only say, he was wearing casual clothes at the time, and he had no temperament at all. He was very wretched. Besides, the matter was resolved and we went our separate ways. I didn't take it to heart and never thought about meeting him again. Isn't life making things difficult for her? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 203 The Journey of Glory begins here. Miss Yan was very direct and blunt, but in Shang Tanin's impression, it was very rare for someone to speak ill of someone like she did tonight. He suppressed his smile, but couldn't help but be curious. Can I ask, you too, why did he? This was a bit discouraging. Shang Tanin was thinking of a synonym that was milder than breaking off the engagement, but he heard Feiyu crisply say, True love. I asked a lawyer to find out. She sneered. This person is hypocritical. He told me at first that he and I were not suitable. Shang Tanin wanted to laugh again. Such a sympathetic experience, but he heard a full sense of fighting spirit in Feiyu's words. Then you ask him to pay some compensation according to the rules, and then let him go. Oh, the procedure was normal, but Shang Tanin was a little surprised that Miss Yan was so restrained back then. Does the guard army earn a lot of money? Shang Tannen thought they were lost in the conversation about the past when he heard this, but he quickly caught up with Feiyu's train of thought. Why, didn't he lose much? That's it. Feiyu was so angry when she thought of the bargaining that year that she opened her mouth with some hatred and her words almost flew away. I donated as compensation, it's not much. Shang Tannen could feel Feiyu's full of resentment. He wanted to laugh but couldn't help laughing, so he comforted her in a gentle voice, let it go after it's over. Did the guards bring any military dependents? Feiyu asked again. I haven't seen any either. Shang Tannen was guessing Feiyu's intention of mentioning the military dependents, only to hear her say in a pleasant voice, I'm very sorry that his true love couldn't accompany him this time. Do you care about him about this? It's okay. It took a little time and energy to deal with it at the time, and it was a bit annoying, Feiyu said frankly. It's indeed let it go after it's over. However, now I have my whole family together, and he is going alone, and I suddenly feel inexplicably happy. The group behind us will not rush to Luoyang soon, right? Probably not. Shang Tannen chuckled softly. The Luoyang Star News has always mentioned the Legion's second-tier plan. Even if there's, it depends on our development over there. I guess we have to wait until the waterway is fully built. Well, I think so too, Feiyu agreed, and she couldn't be happier. She sincerely hoped that the farmhand and he were truly in love, and that they would miss each other after arriving at Luoyang. After she let it go, she turned over and said, things are a bit difficult, huh? He and I have a grudge, and now he is mixed in with the Luoyang guards. It will always be a trouble in the future. Feiyu frowned slightly. Shang Tannen thought for a while and said comfortingly, the guards have rules, and we in the conscription group have our own jobs, so we shouldn't have many opportunities to come into contact with him. Now you are a family member who is summoned, and your ex-fiancé has another lover. Everyone is minding their own business and it shouldn't be related. You think so, but he doesn't. It seems that he has recognized us a long time ago, but he kept silent and pretended not to know us after meeting us several times. Such a person is very patient, and we need to be wary of him doing bad things in secret, Shang Tannen thought, in such an awkward relationship. It seems that he can't just say hello right away. Hi, ex-fiancé, how are you? On this point, he guessed that Qi Changgong was also in a difficult situation. Feiyu continued to remind him, this person is very stingy. He has always been unwilling to accept the fact that I asked him to compensate. In the future, when you go to Luoyang, the military and politics will be managed together, and everyone will be in the same system. You must be careful. He is not a gentleman, she said seriously. According to general social experience, the probability of him doing bad things to you is greater than to me. How much did you ask him to compensate? 95% of his total income from the time he started working to the day the engagement was cancelled, before tax. Shang Tannen laughed out loud. It turned out that Miss Yan had never changed her temper. There was no such thing as restraint when dealing with the enemy. Do you think it's a lot? Feiyu propped up her elbows in surprise, staring at the corner of Shang Tannen's bed, and inquired, or not enough? Shang Tannen chuckled at the tone of her voice. No matter how much, some things can't be measured by money. Feiyu put her hand down, lay back on the pillow, and said with satisfaction, indeed, I don't think his money can measure my anger. Shang Tannen slowly recalled that after returning from the break of his second year of graduate school, she sat calmly in front of the door of the East Villa, being watched from across the river by him and his classmates. It turned out that she had just experienced such an annoying thing, and a sigh rose in his heart. Be careful, she solemnly warned him from the other side of the bed. It's okay, he smiled. He heard her nod, and the quilt made some small noises, and knew that she had put her hand under the quilt. After a long time, there was no more sound in the room, and he closed his eyes. This was their last night in the irradiated area of the Alliance civilization. You are not opposed to going to Luoyang? Shang Tannen opened his eyes, and the echo of these crisp words seemed to still linger in the room. He blinked, and in the darkness of half asleep and half awake, he focused on the ceiling. He heard some very slight rubbing sounds in the corner of the big bed, as if someone was about to curl up in the quilt and fall asleep without getting a response. No, he opened his lips, and could feel the cool air of the night sliding into his mouth. The corners of his lips subconsciously curved up. I don't object, I used to think you were forced. Feiyu's voice immediately followed, still crisp, without any sleepiness. No, today I saw you dancing the war dance together, and I knew you didn't object to being exiled to Luoyang. Yes, Shang Tanin smiled. Achieve success, something, Feiyu sighed deeply, then sighed, of course I should. I wish you all the best, and stay safe, she added sincerely. If safety isn't fully guaranteed, all other achievements will vanish, and will be reduced to just 4 prominent families in the original Maman district. Okay, thank you, Shang Tanin smiled again. Feiyu rolled over, thinking about boarding the ship for Luoyang and how long she'd have to wait for her home in Maman. Feiyu, if you can't sleep, we can sit up and talk. No, I can sleep. Feiyu glanced firmly at the ceiling and closed her eyes. Don't worry. I'll do my best to help you achieve your wish. Feiyu closed her eyes and curled her lips. I'm responsible for all my choices. Don't feel pressured. Good night. It was the wee hours of the morning. Shang Tanin stood at the door of the small bedroom, with 2 suitcases on the floor. He looked up and scanned the room, and heard the door of the bathroom slide open. Are you ready? He asked. All right. Feiyu had her hair tied up, and her facial features, which had just been sprayed with facial cleanser, became even more delicate and cool, and even her voice was cold. Did you get the comb? Feiyu spread out her palms, and a topaz comb emitted a warm light under the light, and the whole body was evenly clean, without any flaws. Put it away, we are leaving, Shang Tanin instructed in a gentle voice. Feiyu put the topaz comb into her bag. Shang Tanin slung one bag over his right shoulder and another in his right hand. He opened the door, held Feiyu's hand with his left hand, and joined the couples in the corridor. Sir, madam, please wait, the next elevator will be here soon. They stopped and lined up with other families. Sir, madam, if you suddenly remember anything unfinished, please let me know and I'll take care of it as soon as possible. The sturdy auxiliary guard woman stepped quietly along the line. Hello, Feiyu greeted. Hello, madam. The auxiliary guard woman immediately stopped and asked respectfully, is there anything you need? Will you come with us? Yes, child, the auxiliary guard woman smiled, her plump cheeks filled with human-like muscles, full of kindness. It is my great honor to accompany you, to take care of you, and to protect you until I can lay down my armor. Feiyu glanced at the flesh-colored skin that peeked from beneath the sleeves of the auxiliary guard woman's deep lotus-colored women's military uniform. Thank you, she turned and smiled at Shang Tanin. The west wind rustled, rustling the banners of the Luoyang Legion in the morning light. A floating screen guided the way, inscribed, The Glorious Journey Begins Here. Chapter 204, To be Built. The Chuxiu had been docked for 3 days, according to the Luoyang calendar. Mrs. Shang, Mrs. Shang, go to the lecture hall for the progress briefing. Feiyu opened the cabin door and saw Mrs. Yin cheerfully repeating the announcement to Mrs. Ge's intercom next door. Mrs. Shang, you're out. Mrs. Yin, perceptive, turned and greeted her cheerfully. Mrs. Yin, you're up so early. Feiyu followed. As a copywriter in the propaganda department, Mrs. Yin delighted in using her leisure time during the long journey to proactively apply her work enthusiasm. She was always very active in relaying various information and notices within their small group, sometimes even beating the guards to the punch. I can't sleep. I don't know how they're doing out there. Why don't they send some of them back to rest? Mrs. Yin worried, but this didn't affect her efficiency at knocking on each door. She greeted Mrs. Jet cheerfully and then led the group of wives to continue their call to the Gu family's cabin. Did you have a good nap? Mrs. Jet was a gentlewoman. Perhaps because Feiyu was quiet, she mistook her for a similar type of daughter-in-law, and in the crowd, she was very happy to chat with her. Good, Feiyu is a rule-abiding person. When the Corps issued a notice for those remaining on the Chuxiu to rest regularly, she took a rest. She didn't have many worries, unlike her neighbors, who would talk about their husbands who had been disembarked for work. Shang Tanin had been disembarked for 3 days, and there had been no news from here. Several of Feiyu's male colleagues in the non-human department, including interstellar biology experts Caleb Xiangji and expert hunters Li Piao and Yuan Dan, had also disembarked. Her neighbors, Gu Huaisi and Yin Dechen from the construction department, Jeguanqing from the environmental safety department, and mineralogist Milandan, her neighbor from the Kaolichi River Valley camp, were among the first group of Luoyang Corps advance landings. 2/3 of the people remained on the Chuxiu. Aside from eating and sleeping at regular times, they only wandered around the permitted living quarters. The daily progress briefing was the highlight of the day. Hello, sisters-in-law. Feiyu recognized the rosy-lipped, talkative future nursery director. He pulled his wife, a kind and patient nursery worker who would later become a childcare assistant, to his side. For the entire voyage, before entering the Qi system, the entire ship was in hibernation, giving Feiyu a good deal of free time. Since the Chuxiu's successful exploration of the Qi system, they had awakened from hibernation and gradually adjusted their routines to the Qi system's pulsating resonance patterns. During each activity period, Feng Situ would always visit his brother, Shang Tannen, with whom he had shared a pair of pants, and Feiyu had become acquainted with the couple. Feiyu was genuinely curious about the story behind the pants. Shang Tannen hadn't denied the story, but had only half-jokingly and half-blushedly told Feng Situ to stop arguing, as if Feng Situ had actually used Shang Tannen's pants. That day she was obedient and followed his instructions, but she glanced at Shang Tannen subconsciously, and her eyelids drooped slightly, which frightened him so much that he seemed to jump 3 feet away. So many times she swallowed the words when they were on the tip of her tongue. Calling her a grown-up lady and asking about the details of her pants was a bit vulgar. Feiyu was reluctant to ask, but she stared at Feng Situ, who had rosy lips and white teeth, and never expected that he would behave so uncivilized. At present, she was very entangled in Feng Situ's attitude. Since she had accepted Shang Tannen's favor and was temporarily acting as the hostess of the Shang family, Feiyu also wanted to make a good impression in this alliance and lay some foundation for the future real hostess of the Shang family. Seeing that Feng Situ was so familiar with her, the two families had a tendency to become close friends. Friends of different levels should be treated with different levels of reception attitudes, right? But she didn't want to be so familiar. Shang Ma, don't worry, Shang Bar and his brothers are doing well outside. Feng Situ jumped in front of her and called her Shang Ma. Feiyu had been promoted from Mrs. Shang to sister-in-law Shang, and now, over the past 2 days, to Mother Shang. She was in the prime of her life. I'm not worried, she said, looking aside with a smile. Good afternoon, sister-in-law Feng. Good afternoon, sister-in-law Shang. See, that was a normal conversation. Feiyu glanced at the Feng couple, reaffirming that sister-in-law Feng came across as more reliable and honest. She even suspected that the taciturn but ever-smiling sister-in-law Feng might be more skilled in her field. After all, when she was a child, if she had the freedom to choose a nanny, she would have definitely chosen sister-in-law Feng over Feng Situ. Director Situ, do you know what's going on out there? Mrs. Yin asked, leaning over. I don't know, Feng Situ chuckled. It must be good. How could it be otherwise? Mrs. Yin's surprise was in vain, thinking Feng Situ had some inside scoop. She tutted and hurried back into the larger crowd. The daily progress report couldn't have been more concise. A rotating officer emerged from the escort force. Feiyu squinted and took a closer look. It wasn't the farmhand. She had informally met the farmhand on the Chuxiu, but on the day the hibernation period ended, she had caught a glimpse of him, halfway between General Shruni's henchmen and a group of his followers, as seen in the ship-wide notification on the floating screen. Today, the advanced troops are still operating on the Shilin Plateau, and progress is smooth. The large screen showed a 5-minute live feed. The Shilin Plateau, where the Luo Wen Corps first landed, was said to be a prime location for setting up camp. The landscape was covered in dried, yellow damp soil. Where the work vehicles passed, fresh lumps of earth were left behind, sparsely rolling and revealing a hint of black. The robots responsible for engineering logistics were skillfully sucking the earth balls into the loading slots and then transferring them back to the large funnels of the civil engineering department. The scene zoomed in, revealing a cluster of gray roof domes in a corner, the temporary headquarters for the Highland construction. The land looked vast. If you ignored the clusters of withered grass swaying in the wind, the plateau would be quite flat. It was late autumn in the Shilin Plateau, and they had a month's window to settle in. Of course, this month referred to the Luoan calendar. The plan was to spend the entire winter on the Shilin Plateau, adapting to life and carrying out small-scale land reclamation activities. Before welcoming the legendary violent spring and summer. There were warmer areas available, but there were many uncertainties, so they decided not to settle there for now and would focus on observation. This was a rumor spread through the grapevine. Feiyu's gaze swept across the winding channels of the giant machinery on the plateau, and then to the farthest and widest work area, where a trench was being formed by gushing water. It was said to be the foundation of the hoop for Shilin City's artificial protective shield. No mistakes, one poem, one post, one content, 1 6, One book, one forum, take a look. The advance crew, mixed with robots, were scattered here and there. Even with so many gone, they were still very sparsely spread out on the ground. Close-up still seemed bustling with activity, but unfortunately, they were all wearing the same uniformed military protective gear, and the 5-minute camera panned around, making it difficult to distinguish who is who. Now, the list of the second batch of landing personnel will be announced, the officer announced, and the lecture hall immediately buzzed with activity. He ignored the chattering and continued with a serious face. Those who have received notifications, please gather at the designated barge area after lunch. Feiyu quickly checked her communicator. She hadn't received any notifications. However, in the non-human research department's workgroup, she saw that the symbol brought by the veterinarian Wang Yun had turned translucent, indicating that he would be assigned a mission and could request support from other colleagues in the department if necessary. Alice, it's not my turn, Feng Sita said gloomily. I'll be down sooner or later. There's no need to rush, Mrs. Feng soothed gently. The baby isn't even born yet, Director Situ, don't worry, Mrs. Gu teased, and the other women laughed. Any further questions? No, this progress briefing is over, the officer prepared to turn. Excuse me, are there any casualties among the advance team? Feiyu pressed the question button, and an interactive screen lit up above her head, mirroring her solemn expression. The crowd fell silent. The officer glanced at her and said flatly, Madam, thank you for your question. There are no casualties among the advance team, and everyone is in excellent physical and mental condition. Any other questions? The last sentence sounded a bit harsh, and no one in the room raised any questions. The officer nodded and walked away in his boots. Don't worry, Mrs. Shang, Mrs. Jia said in a low voice. Yes, Mrs. Yin, intimidated by the officer's aura, whispered, rolling her eyes. There are a lot of people on the ground. If anything happens, they'll let us know. I'm not worried. Feiyu wanted to roll her eyes. She simply felt that progress briefings should include casualties as an integral part of the report, beyond the clichés about smooth sailing. Isn't that a good format? If there were no casualties, they could say there were 0 casualties. Would that be more reassuring? And to be honest, this otherworldly place looks really shabby. Chapter 205 The Ninth Woman. Feiyu and the neighboring ladies spent another 5 days. Every day, a man went down to the surface, and now there were almost only families and a small number of guards on the Chuxiu. Mrs. Yin told everyone that Deputy Director Shuang Jishan of the Cultural and Sports Variety Department and his male singer Xiao Duan had also received the order and gone down. Everyone guessed that the construction of Shilin Highlands was in full swing and probably needed songs to express their aspirations. Of course, there were exceptions, and the director of the nursery, Feng Situ, was that exception. He still stayed on the ship. He had a strong appearance, but a delicate heart. When Feiyu and the sisters-in-law were having dinner in the restaurant, he would pull his wife over to join the table and comment on the characteristics of the set meal. He also loved to listen to everyone's childhood memories. He was also very willing to run errands. He often represented the sisters-in-law to order the robot auxiliary ant, or to make friends with the officers and soldiers on duty of the guards and get some information back. The families had nothing to do and were well fed. The Chuxiu's daily schedule followed Luo Wongli's exact schedule. Everyone woke up early to work out, then took a scheduled nap after lunch. Then, they waited for the progress briefing. Everyone stared at the live footage, made daily comparisons, and then went off for afternoon tea. This day, Feiyu didn't get to have her afternoon tea. She was told to grab her parcel and leave the ship. Feng Situ remained stationed aboard the Chuxiu, gazing longingly at Feiyu with genuine sincerity. Mother Shang, be careful down there. Say hello to Father Shang and his brothers. I'll be there in a couple of days. Not necessarily. Feiyu paused, not wasting a word to correct Feng Situ's address again. She remembered that the social connection of nursery director might be unavoidable for Shuang Tannen and the future hostess of the Shang family, and she couldn't afford to be awkward. So, she kindly offered Feng Situ her opinion to comfort him. There's no rush to choose a location for the nursery. Once everyone has a place to live, we can allocate space for you. Besides, the ship can't just have family members on board. With so much supplies yet to be evacuated, we need strong labor. All the robots we need have gone down to help. Yes, Feng Situ said with a bitter face. I'll keep it for now. Feiyu quickly picked up her own bag, nodded to Mrs. Jet, Mrs. Gu, and Mrs. Yin, and headed to the barge to line up. It was the afternoon of late autumn and early winter in Luoyang. The barge flew out of the Chuxiu, and the slate-gray skyline unfolded in the window. Vast clouds rolled and nestled in the sky, thick as if they hadn't moved for eternity. The surface was dotted with unevenness, and in the distance, there was even a bottomless cliff face, its darkness rumbling like a long, hideous wound that would never heal. The Xiling Highlands, perched on a plateau at the edge of the cliffs, were dotted with man-made structures, seemingly small and cozy compared to the surrounding desolate terrain. The barge was ushered into the protective shield, and Feiyu followed the others down. The ground in Luoyang is a bit hard, she thought, looking down at her feet. She silently curled her toes and felt the sensation for a moment. The air current was abrupt, blowing a strand of hair from her hairpin forward. She turned her head to look at the shield's exit, and the barge soared into the air like a star arrow. Through the protective shield, the sky was a dark blue-gray, the same color seen when the barge arrived. Construction was still ongoing, and there wasn't enough time to create a pleasing backdrop resembling blue sky and white clouds, Feiyu thought to herself. Then she wondered if the plan was meant to be this rough, so everyone would face reality as soon as possible. Before the crowd, a ring of domes formed a hollow ring, topped by a large arched roof. Everyone had become familiar with this structure during the daily progress briefings on the Chuxiu. It was first constructed, then shown daily on the live footage. Unofficially, everyone simply called it a roundhouse, but its official name was the Shelin Heights Command Center. It would later be designated a historical site. Feiyu was certain of this, and a sense of respect welled up in her heart. She silently surveyed the roundhouse with a pre-visited awe, then turned to glance around. While she had already understood the current layout aboard the Chuxiu, the experience of actually descending to the ground was quite different. The air of primitive desolation was so close. Aside from the roundhouse and the cluster of domes extending to the rear, no other traces of planning were apparent. The vastness felt so real that even breathing the modified air within the artificial protective shield, she couldn't help but hold her breath, trying to discern the scent of ancient Luoyang that lingered until today. In the distance, two hovercraft sped towards them. In a moment, they were close. Everyone, line up. Be patient. Once you've completed your formalities, we'll go to rest, the escorting officer shouted. Leaving the guards at the periphery of the crowd, he quickly approached the group disembarking from the vehicles and saluted. Reporting to the Chief of Defense, 300 people are landing today, and the escort formation is 100. Thank you for your hard work, the leader replied succinctly, glancing at the crowd before turning and saying, registration will now begin. This was the true Luoyang landing. It was a day worth remembering. After all, how many opportunities do you have to set foot on a primitive, desolate planet in your lifetime? As Feiyu, carrying her bag, followed the group toward the roundhouse, she scanned her surroundings from time to time, using every sense to explore the unfamiliar surroundings, preparing to write a detailed report on her experience tonight, a Luoyang diary. However, as news continued to pour in, a simple description of the surroundings seemed insufficient. Madam, a heartfelt welcome. Please show me your identification, the robotic security woman smiled and announced solemnly. Oh, Ms. Yan, you are the 3001st citizen to reside in Luoyang, the 9th woman in Luoyang's history, and the first woman in Luoyang's history to hold a degree in advanced mechanical research from the Alliance. If I hadn't stepped back in line earlier, I would now be the 8th woman in Luoyang's history. Feiyu said silently, walking past the health monitor and casually asking, when did the history of Luoyang begin? 9 days ago, the auxiliary guard blinked and added seriously, official history, are there also unofficial histories? Someone will always have them, everything will. The woman winked at Feiyu humorously and said regretfully, but for now, there's only the official history. What was before that? Prequel. Feiyu nodded and glanced at the health monitor. It didn't produce anything, not even a sound. This meant no physiological report. Feiyu had gotten used to it after so many checkups. Ms. Yan, you will now receive a series of rules and regulations regarding the settlement of Luoyang, and these regulations are continuously being deepened and expanded. Considering the unique circumstances of the initial construction of the primitive planet, the interpretation of all rules and regulations will be the responsibility of the Luoyang Legion Legal Affairs Committee. Individual or small group exceptions will be fully considered, understood, and even incorporated into the legal framework, but they are not necessary factors in the definition of the rights and obligations of Luoyang citizens. Do you accept this unconditionally? What if I'm unsure? Feiyu asked. Then I will make an appointment with a legal advisor for you. The auxiliary guard woman didn't take it as an offense at all, and continued with a kind smile. But I'm afraid you will have to wait here for a few days, as our legal advisor is extremely busy. Feiyu glanced at the cold and silent room. I think I unconditionally accept that the interpretation of all rules and regulations will be the responsibility of the Luoyang Legion Legal Affairs Committee. Okay. Now we can move on to the next step, the sacred oath. The auxiliary guard woman took a deep breath and encouraged, Ms. Yan, this is an important moment. Follow me. She led Feiyu through the corridors inside the roundhouse. Chapter 206 Citizens. Feiyu silently surveyed the interior of this future historical building, listening to the staggered cadence of her own footsteps and the robots, her mind a bit hazy. When a future tour guide led tourists through this place, would the echoing footsteps sound somewhat similar to those of today? She couldn't estimate how much time had passed between now and the moment tourists arrived. After all, everything she had seen before this moment had been truly crude, and future developments were difficult to predict. She hoped everything would proceed quickly and smoothly, by which time the road to Luoyang would have smoothly forged a void tunnel, eliminating the need for the undulating detours along the pulsating field trajectories of various galaxies like they had this time, making it seem as if they could return. By then, Luoyang would be bustling with activity, already accepting tourists to increase revenue, and the population entering and leaving the port would be booming, excluding her, of course. By then, she had long since retired, still alive and well, leaning against the wooden railings of her ancestral home in the back garden of her residence, number 2 Qingshuli, Zisan District, Mamen. She calmly sipped the snow dragon liquid, glanced at the orange sunset glow of tea-taking, bowed her head and called out to her heir, then casually mentioned her life scandal, depending on her mood. It turned out that her life scandal was buried in Luoyang's official history, leaving no trace, and even in unofficial records, like a fleeting moment. Ms. Yan, what are your thoughts on the community appointment? Feiyu immediately came to her senses and glanced sideways at the auxiliary guard, who waited for her response with the expression of someone chatting while walking, eagerly waiting for her response. What are your thoughts on the community appointment? She repeated. The auxiliary security lady's eyes turned and she shrugged. Didn't you see the appointment notice pushed behind the rules and regulations just now? The community management is based on 10 households as a section. Your family is currently the first complete family in your section, so you are honored to be appointed as the section chief to guide subsequent families to settle down. I haven't settled down yet, Feiyu quickly asked. Can the section chief be re-elected? Of course. The section chief will automatically be selected from the first household to settle in the corresponding section. You and your husband can take turns to perform this community public welfare management position depending on how busy your job is. The auxiliary security lady blinked and said, Ms. Yan, if you don't want to be the section chief, you can also be the wife of the section chief. Feiyu paused, thinking that she might be more suitable to be the wife of the section chief. How long will this practice of first household management continue? Community management regulations are still being refined, and there's currently no alternative management model, the auxiliary security woman said enthusiastically. Ms. Yan, as the head of the household section, you will have regular meetings to exchange management experiences and opinions. If you have any new ideas, please feel free to contribute to the community management model. Regular meetings were also required. Feiyu felt she had to be the wife of the head of the household section. We're here. The auxiliary security woman paused in front of a door. She must have been chatting with Feiyu enthusiastically on the journey. She pressed her hand against the door, turned back, and whispered, as if telling a secret, Child, this is a historic moment. The video footage of everyone swearing in Luoyang will be permanently preserved in the Alliance Historical Archives. Remember to smile appropriately. She winked. The video footage must be perfect. Feiyu looked at her, her lips curled. The auxiliary guard happily opened the door and bowed to the inside. Respected Key Defense Chief, respected Commander Gu, Ms. Yan Feiyu, a citizen of Luoyang, will take a sacred oath. Please witness it. This was obviously a brighter reception room, warmer and more lively than the immigration inspection room filled with detection lines. Looking over the robots respectfully bent back, she had an unobstructed view of a large desk in the middle. People were sitting in the main and side seats, and they were about to stand up at the sound of the voice. The head of the household section really had more than one worry. Inside the door, the man had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, and looked like the former long-term worker of 15 years. Sister-in-law, welcome, the mellow voice sounded, and this time it easily evoked some long-standing impressions of Feiyu. She recalled the tone of the voice, remembering that she had lamented that the good voice was in the wrong person. Truth is eternal. Look, she still feels the same now. Across the table, the man extended his hand, his posture straight and military-like, less hypocritical than when he was at the negotiation table. Perhaps the years had taken their toll, making him more calculating. Feiyu put her bag at the entrance, walked over, took another look at the man's features, extended her handshake in a very ladylike manner, gently touched the man's fingertips, and then withdrew her hand. "Hello, sir," she said with her lips. The two glanced at each other across the table, but she knew that he knew she had recognized him. It was a bit awkward, but Feiyu remained calm, with a faint smile like a lady. Looking at the impeccable and caring smile of a leader on the face opposite her, she felt her fighting spirit rising. If anyone dared to come at her, she would dare to go after him. But now, let's put things aside and the past is over. A good lady won't get angry easily. Sister-in-law, welcome to the Shillin Highlands. It's a great honor to be your oath-taking witness, said an officer nearby, extending his hand. Feiyu immediately shifted her gaze to the other man, who had thick eyebrows, large eyes, a strong build, and a very respectable appearance. "Hello, sir," her smile widened a little. "Then let's get started," the auxiliary guard lady advised. "Ms. Yan, please familiarize yourself with the text in front of you first, and then read it out fluently." The prompt screen flashed, and Feiyu glanced at it. She straightened her back and read out in a cooperative manner, "On October 17th, 38,590 of the Alliance calendar, on the 9th day of the first month of the first year of Luoyang, I, Yan Feiyu, am summoned by the Alliance to land on Luoyang star at 35.46 degrees west longitude and 45.87 degrees north latitude, and take the oath here, no mistakes in one poem, one post, one content, 1619, one book, one forum. I, Qi Changgong, Chief of the Defense of the Luoyang Star's Shillin Highlands. Bear witness here, I, Gujek, Commander of the 3rd Patrol Battalion of the Luoyang Corps Guard, bear witness here." Feiyu stared at the notification screen, a rough map of Luoyang in the background as the oath jumped out one by one. She read it slowly, sentence by sentence. "I have come to Luoyang, dedicating all my knowledge and courage to rebuilding a home and paradise for humanity among the vast stars. I am grateful for Luoyang's response to humanity. Since its birth from the void, the resources it has accumulated to this day will be considered a generous gift from nature. I will cherish and carefully use them appropriately, guided by the advocacy of the Alliance law and in accordance with the detailed laws of self-discipline for Luoyang citizens. Any personal risks I may face in this process will be considered as a test of nature's mercy. I will greet them with courage and awe, bear them with equanimity, and willingly merge my mission and my life with it. I am ready. I will forever love this land and be its humble citizen." Chapter 207, The Dome House illuminated by the moons. The night was clear, and all the dome seemed bathed in the milky white dawn light. A faint night breeze blew, perhaps the convection current flowing through the rows of domes. Feiyu wrapped herself tightly in her bokangsing blanket and sat on the steps in front of Dome Number 1 in Section 13 of Qingayan Community, gazing at the small courtyard enclosed by a faux wooden fence. The courtyard was small, at most similar in size to the rose garden that surrounded the 3-person villa across the west bank from where she had studied. But its emptiness made it seem quite spacious. The ground was dark, gleaming in the moonlight. To the west stood a blue stone that seemed to have been cut into a long strip. She had examined it at dusk, when the sky was still bright, and the edges had been polished and rounded. It lay quietly, casting 2 long, slanted shadows on the ground. In the center of the courtyard ran a path paved with the same material as the fence, just wide enough for 2 people to stand side by side. It stretched from the dome entrance to the courtyard entrance. Outside the courtyard gate, a road made of the same material as the fence, thoughtfully painted indigo to indicate a public thoroughfare, turned a deep black in the moonlight, winding its way. Unfortunately, it ended at the western end of the courtyard fence. Feiyu looked eastward toward the road. Identical domed houses stood one after another every 2 or 3 meters, some with lights on, some without. Each dome and each courtyard's low fence cast a dappled shadow along the moonlit road, like a path of lotus flowers radiating pure light. No one was seen. She tilted her head to the west. Following the gentle slope, the white moonlight stretched vastly, casting a hazy, clear glow over the ground and the sky. The area was vast. She sighed. It was 10 o'clock at night. Two beams of light flew in from a low altitude not far away, slowly landing at the intersection at the eastern end of the road, then rising again and flying away. Feiyu rested her chin on her hand, looking eastward. In the moonlight, she could vaguely make out a figure, a shadow as light as a lotus, walking down the path, her boots making a soft clatter in the still night. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. The figure passed the fence of the neighboring dome, number 2, and the small empty alley between number 2 and number 1. She reached the gate of the courtyard and found it open. She paused, peering straight into the courtyard. After another pause, she said happily, Feiyu, 1. Feiyu finished counting the numbers of the domes in her mind. She tugged at the broken blanket and stood up. Why are you so late? Is it overtime or is it so late after get off work? Overtime. I have so much to do, Shang Tannen said with a smile. He turned around, closed the gate, and walked in quickly. He didn't have time to ask, why did you come down today? I thought it would take several days. This place is still in a mess. I had to come down sooner or later, Feiyu said calmly. She glanced at the art and commented very pertinently, it's not bad. It has an extra fence than Kurachi. Shang Tannen's mouth curved into a smile. He looked up at Feiyu in the moonlight. They had been apart for 9 days, but her appearance hadn't changed much. Are you cold? How long have you been waiting? Come in, not cold. I'm admiring the moon. She looked up. Shang Tannen followed her line of sight and looked up. In the sky, the moons were crescent. One in the east, one in the west. They are called the main moon and the secondary moon, also known as Alpha and Beta. Is it like this outside the shield as well? Shang Tannen heard this faint voice and chuckled. I haven't been out at night, but the views from inside and outside the shield should be similar. Have you been out during the day? Feiyu pointed out perceptively. Basically, every other day, with the various work groups, I need to observe the robot's actual operation in Luoyang and make local adaptations. Feiyu asked curiously, is work going well? What's it like outside? Shang Tannen smiled again. Let's talk inside. The insulation of our shield during this transition period isn't particularly enhanced. The temperature drops quickly at night, just like outside, and we'll be introducing gas exchange at midnight. Don't get cold. Yes. Feiyu turned and flicked on the lights in the dome. A large double bed filled the center of the room caught her eye. She turned back to see Shang Tannen bending over by the door, rustling off his boots. I took your broken blanket. I'll give my mom and blanket to others later. It's also new, she said embarrassedly. It's a bit cold. The robot said that our large luggage bags will be delivered to us tomorrow. You can use it. It's for you to take care of. Shang Tannen raised his head and smiled at a colorful pattern of little angels collecting nectar on her body, and asked about other things. How did you find this place? Where did you have dinner? The commuter bus delivered it. Feiyu nodded under the big bed. I had nutritional supplements here for dinner. I received a half-month family quota. The robot said that it can only be given as a family unit, so I had to take your quota as well. Is it okay? How do you usually eat? It's okay. I've been picking up meals in the big restaurant these days. When it's very busy, the meal distribution robot will deliver it directly to the department. Since we have received the quota, I will bring it myself starting tomorrow. Feiyu paused and asked, do you think the daily necessities on the Chuksu are enough for so many of us to survive until the next transport ship arrives? Don't worry, Shang Tannen said gently. This isn't just a one-person issue. The recruiting office or the Luoyang Corps will have their own long-term plans. Feiyu nodded, raising her eyebrows and smiling. Yes, our non-human division will have plantations and breeding farms in the future. Sit down and talk, Shang Tannen said, smiling as well. He walked into the room, approached the west wall, pressed a button, and a bench suddenly rose from the wall. Have you seen all the facilities in the room? He asked. Yes. Feiyu sat on the stool, once again facing the double bed in the center. She sighed faintly. I've already seen the prototype on the Chuksu. It's better than I expected. The design is quite thorough. Shang Tannen chuckled softly, walked to the east wall, and pressed another button. There's another stool here, he explained, looking up at Feiyu, his gaze moving from the large bed to see her sitting upright and virtuously. When verifying the residence, all facilities need to be used once. so that any defects can be reported to the housing department in time, he explained, so I unfolded the bed and tried sleeping on it these few days. Don't mind, beds are for sleeping, Feiyu said simply. How do we rest? You sleep on the bed. Xiong Tannen had obviously thought about it in advance. I can sleep on the stool or put a sleeping bag. Feiyu glanced at the long bench on the opposite wall, and looked at Xiong Tannen without any concealment, and concluded, the stool won't work, it's too narrow. I've lay on my side. No problem. No. I have a problem. I won't be able to take turns with you in the future. I will fall down. You don't have to take turns, just sleep on the bed, Xiong Tannen blurted out. Chapter 208 Moonlight Night. Feiyu frowned slightly. Every time she and Xiong Tannen moved to a new place, they always had endless worries about sleeping. Otherwise, she wouldn't have had to wait until they returned to discuss it tonight. It was all because the place was too small to fit in. This dome, to be honest, was more spacious than the two-person tent they'd pitched during their training at Kaology. Now, the two-person tent had been split. Each person had a single tent, which was stowed in their respective carry-on bags as required. It was for emergency use, in case they had to abandon the Shilin Plateau and camp in the wilds of Luoyang. Within the Highlands Protective Shield, the buildings and roads were designed to the standards of a temporary city, with a unified design and rapid construction. With a house and a yard, it already met the minimum standards for transitional small family life. On this primitive planet, uninhabited for billions of years, it couldn't be expected to be more perfect anytime soon. The designer was truly ingenious. A single room truly served multiple purposes. The double bed, occupying the largest and best area in the center, has a storage cabinet underneath. If unexpected guests arrive, the bed can be folded down to the dome's floor mat, transforming the cabinet into a long, comfortable table for dining and conversation. With the cabinets folded away, the floor becomes spotless, creating a spacious space. 10 or so people can squeeze in, and the wall stools rise to create a bar for snacks and family birthdays. The design accommodates the living and social needs of a two-person household, with one room serving as a bedroom, living room, and dining room, but without the ability to split it into two smaller bedrooms. Are you going to work outside tomorrow? Feiyu saw Xiong Tannen nod, and stood up and said, then let's not talk about it anymore. You're quite tired, so sleep in the bed tonight. I just got here, and tomorrow I'm just going to report to the non-human department to get familiar with the working environment. I'll use a sleeping bag tonight. I'll use a sleeping bag, Xiong Tannen said firmly. Feiyu, that's it. He walked to the bed and squatted, took out his carry-on bag, and asked with concern, have you contacted the non-human department today? Minister Jin video called me and said I'm welcome to go out, Feiyu said casually. Yes, welcome to go out, Xiong Tannen repeated jokingly. Tannen, this is Luoyang. Xiong Tannen raised his head and saw her standing in the middle of the ground. Her face was as smileless as usual, but her words were gentle. This is not Kaology. You can't always be generous and humble just because it's a temporary expedient. He smiled, shook his head, and continued to pull out his bag from under the bed. He answered while busying himself, I'm not being generous and humble. I have already slept on this bed when it was new. Now you can sleep on it. We will clean it up and make it look better after a while. I heard Huaysi say that after the water problem is solved, each family will be equipped with a bathroom, and things will get better and better. By the way, our sections 10 to 15 are temporarily sharing a large bathroom center, which is located near section 10. Have you been there? Feiyu listened to this long speech. Xiong Tannen was really as gentle and humble as always. She walked to the bed and sat down, glanced at him, and said after a while, can you tell me who Huaysi is first? Huaysi is the name of Mr. Gu, who used to be our neighbor across the street, from the construction department, so Mr. Gu's name is Gu Huaysi. Is he in our 13th section? No, he and Guanqing, Mr. Jen next door, are both in the other Huayan community, but in different groups. Dechen, Mr. Yin's family, is in the Kayan community. We're all a bit separated. Xiong Tannen held up the sleeping bag and smiled at Feiyu. He knew Feiyu had always been resigned to being coerced into the wives group by Mrs. Yin and her friends. Feiyu paused, then pointed to the other side of the bed. Put it there. It's okay to put it next to the bed, but it's best not against the wall. There are too many mechanisms underneath. If they malfunction and the stool rises, you won't be able to sleep well in the middle of the night. Xiong Tannen did as he was told and unfolded the sleeping bag. Feiyu watched as he didn't let it attach to the bed, but rather, within the limited space, he'd try to leave a gap between it and the footboard. "You'll have to endure it tonight. I'll find a solution later," she promised. Shuang Tian'an knelt, head down, busy, a hint of a smile on his face. "I am now the head of the household section of Section 13, Feiyu reported. "Oh," Shuang Tian'an was surprised and looked at her, appointed. Feiyu nodded speechlessly. "Okay," Shuang Tian'an seemed to agree, "you can definitely do it." Feiyu's desire to become the wife of the head of the household section, after staring at him still spreading his sleeping bag after coming home late, she didn't mention it in the end. She would try it first, and if it doesn't work, she would give up the position. She sighed in her heart. It was late at night. "Turn off the lights and go to bed," Shuang Tian'an asked. Yet, the lighting system was quickly turned off. The room darkened, and then a beam of white moonlight appeared obliquely on the floor in the corner of the room, reflecting two figures with their backs to each other on the mat beside the bed, each undressing in silence. Shuang Tian'an was facing the wall, halfway through taking off his clothes, when he suddenly remembered, "Feiyu, I'm sorry, I should have let you try out the bed first. It's specially made for the house, different from the bed in our Kolachi dormitory. Do you want to turn on the light again?" "No, I can." Shuang Tian'an heard the bed frame bounce slightly, and then the upper quilt cover that was integrated with the bed frame was lifted up, and air leaked in with a slight hissing sound. He swallowed the words that were on the tip of his tongue. Feiyu must have used the default double quilt mode. He wanted to say that he had been using the single quilt mode for the past few days, and always used the left half. If she minded, he could use only the right half of the quilt. Let the moonlight shine in like this, okay, no mistake, one song, one post, one content, one book, one forum, 1619, take a look. Shuang Tian'an had already lain down with his eyes closed. He opened them at the sound. He didn't even need to look out the window to effortlessly catch a glimpse of the secondary moon hanging high in the distant sky. White moonlight shone in like a streak of silk from the window lattice facing the courtyard, slanting onto the surface of the sleeping bag on his chest, while also climbing up the edge of Feixu's bed. "It's okay," he chuckled. "The window shades can't be activated before midnight. The housing department said that appropriate active exposure can help you adapt to the new environment faster. But whether there are blackout curtains or not, no one outside can see in. Active exposure is okay," Feixu muttered in a low voice. "What about after midnight? You can choose to block out the light, or let it in. You like moonlight, right? Do you mind?" "No." "Then we'll let the moonlight in all night." Feixu slept in the middle of the big bed, with half of her cheek exposed outside the quilt, squinting her eyes, and occasionally glancing at the bright light on the bed. Such a night makes people feel very quiet and beautiful. Slowly, she could hear Shuang Tian'an's clear and even breathing, and as if infected, she was able to calm down. The chaotic thoughts that arose on the first night of landing could not be grasped, but for some reason, they kept her awake. At this moment, it was as if another familiar and lingering breath in the moonlight slowly fell on her eyelashes, making her eyelashes unable to open automatically. Huh? She suddenly opened her eyes. The moonlight was like a wash, and the room was still so quiet. Feiyu stared out the window. The crescent moon hung obliquely on the window sill. The night sky was light blue, and extremely vast, but this sound made her feel that the breath of the strange land of Luoyang was cheering and circling in the wilderness outside the house. She slowly moved her eyes and looked at the ground in front of the bed. The person in the sleeping bag was lying on his side, not awake, with his tall body slightly bent. He was sleeping so soundly. Feiyu was secretly envious, lying quietly in the half-moonlight, watching and listening. After a while, the tip of her nose gradually felt cool, and when she inhaled the air, it seemed to cool all the way to her eye sockets. She gently buried her face under the quilt a little and closed her eyes again. Chapter 209, Morning Rain, Fog and Sunshine. Shuang Tian'an woke up earlier than usual and heard a pop sound as raindrops fell on the bluestone in the yard. After a while, it began to drizzle outside. He opened his eyes and looked through the window to see the dense rain falling at 5:30 in the morning, and the sky in the distance was smoky white. There was still enough time. He continued to lie on his side in his sleeping bag. At 5:50, the sky was getting a little brighter. He sat up and gently got out of the sleeping bag. On the big bed, Feiyu lay quietly under the quilt, with her hair scattered on the pillow. Shuang Tian'an moved his eyes, picked up his clothes, quietly walked around the big bed, and walked to the corner of the room opposite the head of the bed. After a touch, a small corner room was pushed out, and the emergency sensor light inside automatically lit up, releasing a beam of warm yellow light. He moved sideways to block it, looked back, and saw that the big bed did not move, so he closed the door even more lightly. This was a portable dressing room, used by residents to change clothes and prep their appearance. The initial temporary housing design suggested a dry room within the bathroom suite, but the actual bathroom attached to the back of the building was missing. Based on the housing department's functional recommendations, a quick-drying liquid was dispensed in the dry room compartment. A simple spray on the face combined dressing and washing functions, providing a temporary solution during this period. As Shuang Tian'an retrieved the liquid, he noticed a topaz comb in another compartment. He smiled, dressed, and opened the dressing room. A cool, damp breeze blew in his face. "Feiyu, are you up?" he exclaimed in surprise. Feiyu, dressed in a long, pale lotus-colored nightgown and wrapped in a colorful boken blanket, depicting little angels gathering nectar, stood at the doorway, facing the wind. Outside, the rain shone like a stream, weaving a glistening mist down the path. The waist-high gate fence stood silently in the rain. "Good morning," she said, without turning back. Her voice was clear and crisp. "You'll be cold." Shuang Tian'an looked toward the room. The large bed had automatically straightened itself. Her work clothes lay at the corner. He took 2 steps toward it, paused, and suggested, "Hurry up and get dressed." "What time do you start?" "The morning meeting is at 7, Feiyu spun. "The department bus will pick you up at Duandongkao at 6:30, the same place you got off last night." She swiftly removed the Boken star blanket, tossed it onto the bed, and grabbed the clothes from the corner of the bed. "It's still early," Shuang Tian'an said, a gust of wind blowing through the door as he sneered at the cool, thin satin robe. He frowned and hurried to close the door. Turning, he saw the hem of Feiyu's skirt slip into the dressing room. "It's a bit cramped in there," he said hurriedly. "I know. I never expect it to be spacious." The dressing room door closed. Shuang Tian'an chuckled, put away his sleeping bag, and pulled out the food box from under the bed. He flicked through it, and his smile returned. As expected of the Yan family, she didn't even bother to choose, and ordered all the same variety. Shuang Tian'an wasn't particular about food, his only criterion was that it filled his stomach, but he didn't care and took out a daily portion for the 2 of them. "Is it easy to take?" Shuang Tian'an turned his head. And Feiyu had tied up her long hair and changed into a tight-fitting high-altitude protective suit. "Easy to take." He stood up and handed her half of the fish floss-flavored nutritional supplement. "Your lunch and dinner are here. Let's have breakfast at home before leaving." "Yes." Shuang Tian'an turned around and pushed out the long bench on the west wall, and put his portion into the work bag at the door. Turning back again, he saw Feiyu holding the 6 nutritional supplements he gave her in both hands, standing aside, waiting for the big bed to deform. "Isn't this efficiency a bit slow?" She looked at him, frowning. Shuang Tian'an laughed unabashedly and pointed at the stool against the west wall. "Sit there and eat," he added. "I'll lift the middle part of the stool so it can be used as a small table so you can lean your hands on it." Feiyu held her share of food and waited for Shuang Tian'an to tinker with it for her. It wasn't troublesome to have a stool and a table on either side, so the 2 of them sat against the wall, absorbing nutrients, and staring at the big bed in the middle of the room as it continued to transform. The big table was very impressive, with a faint imitation wood pattern on the top, and it even automatically activated the dome's soft light. With the wet scenery outside the window, the small space became like a breakfast room at home, adding a bit of warmth. "Have you converted it?" Feiyu asked. "I converted it once during debugging. It doesn't work well," she commented bluntly. "This kind of multifunctional all-in-one conversion can only be said to be better than nothing." "Yeah," Shuang Tian'an agreed with a smile. "Does the community center have space for guests?" "Yes," Huaisi said. "It's very well planned." Feiyu felt relieved. She had just watched the large bed she had slept in the previous night being folded up and squeezed, crumpled into the mattress. She certainly couldn't bear to have outside guests sit there one day, chatting, laughing, eating, and drinking. Even now, with only Shuang Tian'an and her, the thought of sitting at the table for breakfast was completely dispelled during the conversion from the large bed to the table. In short, life was rough and unpredictable, and very annoying. She could only choose one thing: simply keep it rough and don't change. "When we absolutely need to entertain guests, we'll rent a place at the community center." Feiyu discussed the new rules of the new house. "The bed will still be the bed in the future. What do you think?" Okay, Shang Tannen had no objection at all, and casually mentioned, the community center hasn't been built yet. Feiyu paused and nodded. She understood. There was so much work to be done. We usually don't need to treat everyone to a meal. Everyone has a heavy workload right now and doesn't have much time to visit. Shang Tannen smiled inexplicably, pursed his lips and asked, did you sleep well last night? Good. How about you? Me too. Feiyu turned her head and glanced at him. There seemed to be a strong wind in the middle of the night. Aren't you cold? No, I slept very soundly, Shang Tannen joked to himself, his face showing concern. I forgot to tell you that when the protective shield is opened at night and the gas exchange is taking place, the sound will be a bit scary. Did you wake up in the middle of the night? Or have you been awake all the time? Do you have any other landing discomforts? No, that's good. If there are any, please report to the medical department in time. I will try to get off work early today, but I have an outside mission and there is a set of reporting procedures when I come back, so I may not be able to get off work early. If it's late, you can rest first. If it's early, I will take you to visit the neighbors in this area. I will also have a shuttle bus at 6:30 later. Let's go out and take the bus. We can also meet a few neighbors on the way. Once we get to know each other, you can start your work. What work? No mistakes in the poem. The content is in the 16:9 book bar. Shang Tannen glanced at Feiyu and said, head of the household department. He saw that she looked depressed. He was not surprised at all. He just smiled and stood up and said, I'm done eating. Let's go outside to practice boxing. Feiyu looked out the window. The rain was still pouring. It's still raining. Are you going to expose yourself? No, it will stop soon. Shang Tannen couldn't help laughing, went out the door and waited. Take your time to eat and rest for a while. With so much rain, is there not enough water in the bathroom? Feiyu followed behind him and looked up at the sky. Does Mr. Gu have any comment? This rain falls for half an hour every morning. It's the combination of the earth vapor inside the protective shield, our body vapor, and rainwater treated by evaporation from the wild air brought in by luauing. It's mainly used for self-circulation to maintain this high ground and, incidentally, to clean our buildings. The amount might be a bit demanding, Shang Tannen explained gently. It's not YC's responsibility. I heard from Guanqing from the Environmental Safety Department that we're comparing water sources for our daily water needs, and we're already figuring out how to source them. That'll make washing easier. As he spoke, the rain abruptly stopped. It's 6 o'clock, he said. You go inside. Brother Qiyong isn't out yet, and it's still a bit cold outside. Feiyu followed him out on her own. Shang Tannen figured she was new and wanted to take in the surroundings, so he didn't force her. He walked straight to the gate, ready to practice boxing, leaving her the entire courtyard to wander. This stone doesn't seem to be standard equipment for every household. Is it useful? Well, it's useless for now. Shang Tannen smiled. I saw it when I went to the construction site of the Ministry of Construction a few days ago. I remembered that your family also had a lot of stones, so I took one back. Maybe you want to make something with it. Even if you don't do anything, it can be used as a stool. Feiyu heard it and walked over and bent down to take a look. The stones collected by her grandfather were all rare and unique stones. Shang Tannen was interested. Could it be that Luo Wang was going to give her a surprise as soon as he came? It has been safety tested. Feiyu's interest immediately faded. It was impossible for a rare stone. She stretched out her finger to touch the surface of the blue stone, raised her eyes and said, if you need a stone pot in the future, I can chisel one for you. Shang Tannen couldn't help laughing. Okay, thank you. He took a deep breath, and when he saw Feiyu going to the dome house, he calmly pushed his palm. After he had completed 2 moves, he turned around and saw Feiyu standing in front of the house, standing solemnly in the military boxing stance. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows in surprise. I also have a daily compulsory fitness target. If I don't complete it, I will lose points. Feiyu pushed out a palm to meet him. Shang Tannen nodded and watched her make 2 moves. Feiyu, who had taken physical training classes specifically for the scene simulation report, transformed the masculinity of the military boxing into a graceful and heroic spirit in her moves. Shang Tannen waited for her 2 moves before he followed suit. The 2 stood on the path in the yard, one at each end, practicing the military boxing in sync. The sky became much clearer. Further up, the white fog accumulated in a vast expanse, like a thick lotion that was solid and lumpy, and it did not disperse. It rose from the distant horizon and enveloped this post-rain world. That was the morning mist outside the protective shield. Brother Kyung had not yet illuminated the highlands. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 210 Gatekeeper. It was 6:55 in the morning, the 10th day of the first month of the first year of the Luoyang calendar. The sky cleared and chilly after the rain. A perfect day for work. Feiyu disembarked from the commuter bus and found herself in front of a nondescript, two-story building. A gilded sign gleamed above the central door lintel, Non-Human Lifeform Research Department. A long-armed, wasp-waisted hunter robot, temporarily serving as a temporary duty officer, emerged from the guardhouse next to the gate upon seeing the approaching vehicles and personnel. It lazily emerged from the room, stopped beneath the door lintel, and called out in a hushed voice, "Verifying your identity, Xiao Yan, welcome." Minister Jin strode briskly from the back courtyard, a smile etched across his face from afar. "Everyone's here." As Director Jin reached the access control line, the hunter robot chimed in, "You need to register for attendance." Director Jin paused and waved his hand in annoyance. The robot didn't wave him away, but he came to his senses. There was no point in arguing with the robot. He took a step back inside the access control line, his smile tinged with resignation. "Xiao Yan, look at what it's like." The robot's eyes flickered when it heard him mention it, but after a second, when it received no further instructions, it resumed its indifferent, part-time doorman demeanor. It stood by Director Jin's side, scanning each person's ID before letting them in, a truly dedicated gesture. Feiyu politely let the other colleagues, who had simpler procedures, go in first, then waited in line at the end, greeting her immediate superior, Director Jin, through the access control line. "Great, great," Director Jin beamed. "Xiao Yan, I've been waiting for you for days. Now we just need Xiao Song and Xiao Niu." More and more colleagues from our non-human department are arriving every day, and the work is progressing smoothly and fully underway. "Madam, please verify your identity before entering." The tall and handsome hunter robot listened to the lively greetings from inside and outside the control line, unmoved. He simply stood there, then suddenly interrupted with a very flat remark, lowered his head and glanced at Feiyu, abruptly interrupting the lively greeting. Director Jin's breath still swirled around his mouth and nose as he spoke, so he had to hold it for a moment while he waited for Feiyu to perform his duties. This was the first time the hunter robot had seen its direct supervisor since receiving Luoyang's awakening data, and it didn't offer any kind of welcoming response. Instead, it ordered Feiyu to make a full circle in the cold wind for her first full-scale onboarding verification. He ignored the chill of Director Jin and the other colleagues waiting inside the control line, and meticulously followed the assigned work procedures. Feiyu knew from the outset that this robot's emotional intelligence system was extremely thin, with its internal core space largely reserved for dealing with both friendly and enemy forces during hunting in the wild. Now, working part-time as a security guard, its appearance and posture were acceptable, and it followed all the necessary procedures without slacking off, so its professional capabilities were passable. After verifying everyone's security duties, the robot then proceeded to handle the new employee registration and reception. It said coldly, "Director Yan, welcome to the Luoyang Non-Human Lifeform Research Department as Director of Robot Management. Your office is here." Feiyu followed the direction of its arm and looked towards the adjacent security office. The robot stretched out its hand and raised it again, continuing to inform, "You can put down your personal belongings and follow me to the conference room to wait for the leader to formally receive you." It still had its usual IQ. It turned its gaze and stared at Minister Jin, very concerned about efficiency. "Leader, are you still going to meet Director Yan here? Guard the door, guard the door." Minister Jin looked worried to death, and said to the robot, "Xiao Yan, just follow me." Feiyu and her colleagues entered the work area of the Non-Human Research Department. On the one hand, she was inevitably curious about her future office, and on the other hand, she had to observe the subsequent situation of the robot. She turned her head slightly and glanced sideways, and saw that the gate was empty. The part-time doorman relaxed his shoulders, loosened his waist, and slipped back to the guard room on his own. "Xiao Yan, our current working conditions are very poor." Minister Jin sighed, and led his subordinates across the courtyard, pointing to a row of bungalows at the back. "We only have this one now. Here, This is my office. Come find me there if you have anything. Next door is our tea room, which is also the external reception room. Recently, the construction team has been working behind us, and they will stop and rest together during lunch. Oh, by the way, Xiao Yan, you have to find a way to fix our robots. I used to say in Kolachi that they looked fierce, and we decided on an easygoing service style. Who knew they were too lazy? They are not very proactive in receiving external architects. Now they are serving us, and we can't let them think that we are not enthusiastic. What do you think? I see, I'll take care of it today. Minister Jin was very satisfied, pointing to the other two rooms and said, this is the collective office of my colleagues. The conditions are difficult now, so let's make do with it. Let's get started with our work with nothing. Minister Jin waved his hand in a big circle. Just now in the car, did you see that there is still a large piece of land behind us? I see, Feiyu nodded. In fact, when she was on the commuter bus earlier, Qi Changgong and the others had shown her the department's address from a distance. She strained her eyes, but all she could make out was the wilderness. It wasn't until they were quite close that she suddenly spotted a white-roofed, two-story house nestled in the wilderness. There's plenty of land in front and behind, Feiyu thought. Our research area is just out back. Once the living organism specimen garden, then the pilot breeding garden, and then the pilot plantation, are completed as planned, our non-human division will become a beautiful, secure, and garden-like unit, Director Jin excitedly explained. Her colleagues nodded repeatedly, and Feiyu also nodded. Our unit is a key security unit, so it's a bit remote, quite far from the community. Xiaoyan, was it tough coming all the way here? Not really, Feiyu said truthfully. We'll have a car to pick you up. Minister Jin had admired Feiyu's relentless work style, never complaining about fatigue, ever since the preparatory training session in Korki. He ushered his subordinates into his office and began the morning meeting with, Xiaoyan, let me tell you about your work schedule. In addition to being the head of robot management for our non-human division, you will also serve as the security coordinator. You will be responsible for coordinating the security of our work areas, managing field security, and requesting assistance from the guards when necessary. Any specific security matters will be handled by you. Report to me if you have any questions. Within a minute of Feiyu's new meeting, she had already taken on yet another responsibility. This was normal. Staff were scarce these days, so regardless of the saying the more capable, the more work, everyone should do more. All her colleagues had taken on additional duties. Astrobiologist Qi Changgong was also Minister Jin's special assistant. After the morning meeting, she accompanied Minister Jin to inspect the construction progress of the future garden-style unit. While the other colleagues settled into the large collective office next door, Feiyu, wearing high boots, crossed the courtyard alone and took up her post at the guardhouse at the first entrance, guarding the main entrance and exit of the non-human department. Minister Jin treated her very kindly, and the entire first entrance was under her jurisdiction. The other side of the gate was temporarily used as a robot maintenance warehouse, which was also her area of responsibility. According to the plan, a 3-kilometer barrier would soon be installed in front of the gate to prevent unauthorized access to the non-human department's core offices. From now on, it would be under her control. The security coordinator would build a steel barrier for the non-human department. These were Minister Jin's words. Feiyu shifted in her chair and gazed out the large window of the guardhouse at the endless tundra. She had already changed the part-time doorman's work style. Abandoning the casual style Minister Jin had personally chosen, Feiyu had reverted the robot to the standard protocol she had developed back in Korki, to see how it fared. With nothing else to do on the first day, she enjoyed the scenery. The white mist atop the protective shield slowly dissipated, and a pink glow crept through the gaps between the clouds, gradually revealing a clear sky. In the afternoon, Feiyu was still gazing at the sky, wondering where the women from the Chuxiu usually attended a briefing. She wondered where today's briefing would take them. Feiyu was certain, no matter how hard she tried, it wouldn't reach the remote, non-human tribe. Brother Kyong gradually grew pale and weak, and as the sky began to darken, Feiyu pointed out the best viewing angle to the robot, which had been stationed in the corner all day. Thank you, Commander. I won't be sitting down. I'm going to stand guard. It's time for you to leave. See, this style showed a bit more emotional intelligence, and the instructions were much clearer. Due to system efficiency limitations, even if I gave her more emotional intelligence, it wouldn't be enough. Feiyu watched the gate all day, then tidied herself up and headed home. Chapter 211, Counting the Belongings. Shuang Tian'an returned earlier than yesterday. The main moon, Alpha, had risen, hanging over the open field west of his dome at the westernmost end. It drifted among the fish scale-like clouds, casting a large, pale orange halo. The secondary moon, Beta, had just appeared on the distant horizon, revealing a bright red edge. He looked at it from the east end of the section where he got off the car. It seemed as if some treasure outside his yard was glaring and beckoning. Shuang Tian'an walked closer and closer, but he didn't see anyone in his yard. The bright yellow shadow cast by the dome in the yard coated the bluestone with a soft, pale gold that looked like pale white. The open field outside the fence was clear and quiet. The light of the secondary moon was still on the distant horizon, as if there were countless lights of the human world behind it, making even his home in the open field less lonely. Shuang Tian'an smiled, pushed open the fence gate, walked across the path, stood in front of the closed door, and called out, "Feiyu, I'm back." The door was open, and Feiyu was sitting on the bench against the west wall. She turned her head and greeted, "You're back. Well, what's the matter?" Shuang Tian'an smiled and took off his boots when he entered. At first glance, the room was full of luggage bags. He looked again and felt familiar. It was exactly what he bought before leaving Maman. On the big bed in the middle, two large velvet blankets of lavender and silver gray were spread out casually, with all the corners falling to the ground. On the blanket was an old-fashioned wooden box with the lid opened, and two strings of dark green agate beads lay quietly, shining brightly. "Sir, you're back." A head suddenly popped up at the head of the bed, and then a burly man stood up, opened his mouth and hurriedly bowed to Shuang Tian'an. "Good evening, sir. All the large luggage of you and your wife has been delivered, and your wife asked me to put it away." "Okay, you can go back," Feiyu ordered. "There are still some. The sir has returned, you are no longer needed." Feiyu turned to Shuang Tian'an and asked, "Do you still need it?" "No." Before Shuang Tian'an could speak, the robot walked out of the bed, lightly walked around the luggage bag, and bowed to him and Feiyu again. "Sir, madam, I will go back then." "Madam, are you satisfied with this service this time? If you have any comments or suggestions, please feel free to tell me. I will try my best to improve." Satisfied, Feiyu frowned. "Thank you for your affirmation." The robot stepped out of the door, but was not in a hurry to leave. Facing the house, it bowed respectfully again. "Good night, both of you." Feiyu watched it step onto the path, walk out of the yard, and turn onto the main road. She immediately shook her head and closed the fence gate and the door of the dome. "This housekeeping service robot of ours is really nagging. It's quite serious because it was summoned for rental for the first time." Shuang Tian'an smiled. "I've checked it, and its cutting and sewing functions seem to be average." "Why?" Shuang Tian'an asked in surprise. "Do you want to cut clothes or alter them?" "Neither." "I have an idea." Feiyu glanced at Shuang Tian'an. "It's not mature yet." Shuang Tian'an laughed, not knowing why Feiyu was concerned about cutting and sewing as soon as she logged in. He didn't ask any further, but just said, "If the domestic robots in the section need more and more sophisticated functions, we residents can make suggestions. If you need a professional robot, you can also summon it to the Community Service Center. I remember that our community is equipped with advanced clothing design robots, not needed for the time being. I'm free tonight, so I'll call it over and take a look at its functions." Feiyu curled the corners of her mouth. The head of the household section has the obligation to guide life. She quickly put aside the topic of the head of the household section, pointed to the ground and said, "Your things are all here. See if there's anything missing." She said politely, "I'll go outside for a while." "Feiyu," Shuang Tian'an hurriedly stopped her. "They're in the house. No need to go out. I don't have much stuff. I'm sure it's all there." Feiyu was also a straightforward person. This level of privacy was of no value to them. Nowadays, no one knew who had how many clothes or valuables each had. They even had a shared family account. Shuang Tian'an didn't mind, and she didn't mind even more. It was still a little cold sitting on the doorstep last night. So she didn't go out, but sat down by the bed, leaving half of the room for Shuang Tian'an to move around. She said sincerely, "It's better to check it out. After all, this is all my personal belongings since I came to Xinxing. If anything is missing, I have to go to the property management department." Shuang Tian'an squatted down and smiled, then unpacked and inspected it. Feiyu looked away like a lady, took the wooden box from the bed, held it on her lap, and examined it carefully. She then put the small agate bead on her wrist, stroking the beads, and the two of them chatted. "Have you checked your luggage?" "Yes, there's not much." Shang Tenin was quite surprised to hear that. Feiyu could actually be humorous. He raised his eyes and saw Feiyu's face, but she had a leisurely expression, with her eyelids drooping, and she was only focused on the heirloom beads on her wrist. He glanced at her and then lowered his head to continue checking his things, hiding his amusement. Feiyu's mind at the moment was all on experiencing the feel of the agate beads. She almost never took off the beads. She had taken them off during the training camp in Karachi. Now she put them on again, feeling very familiar. She could only sigh that her hometown Maman was already far away. After she finished her many feelings, she looked up and glanced back at Shang Tenin slowly. The welfare community was checking a few belongings. Look, these bags, together with her bags under the bed, were all their belongings. With these, Shang Tenin would have to survive for the rest of his life, and she would have to survive until she returned to her hometown. "I want to return a blanket to you." "Which color do you want?" she asked, picking up the corners of two blankets, one purple and one gray, lying on the bed. Shang Tenin was stunned for a moment. "No need, you choose one," Feiyu said simply, nodding her chin to the mechanical parts emerging from his bag. "Aren't you going to assemble a robot for your family? I bought you an extra blanket in Maman. Now that I've used your Bokin Star Prize, I should give you one back. Choose a color quickly, the materials and quality are the same." "No need," Feiyu frowned. Shang Tenin patted a box at his feet. "This box and the clothes are all your gift. You can keep our Maman blankets and use them slowly. It won't be easy to buy more in the future. You have to wait until the waterway is clear." Feiyu looked at the box of high-end men's clothing with a dull expression. It was given to them but they were never worn. Besides, it wasn't really a gift. It was a bit like labor equipment. The sincerity must not be enough. She still clutched the two blankets. Shang Tenin hurriedly added, "I will ask you for a blanket when I need one in the future." "Which one?" "This." Shang Tenin glanced at Feiyu who was asking seriously, and suddenly felt discouraged and wanted to laugh. "Gray. But I really don't need it now, let's put it away first." Feiyu nodded and stood up, folding the two blankets neatly while giving instructions. "I'll put them under the bed, you can take them yourself later." "I'll do it, I have to put these things in too," Shang Tenin said, and squatted down diligently to the position of the bedside where the housekeeping robot had been before. One of them passed things, and the other put them in, and continued to chat. "How is your first day at work today?" "No mistake, one post, one content, one book, one forum. Very easy. How about you? How is it outside?" "I moved with the team and changed 2 places by car. We tested walking on the ground. Mainly observing, but not tiring." "Do you have any work assignments at work?" "Yes. I'm still in charge of the maintenance of the robots, and I have an additional security management." "Huh? What do you mainly do?" "Watch the gate surveillance." Shang Tenin paused, squatted on the ground and looked up, then suppressed the corners of his lips that were about to curl up. "Is the scenery nice?" "Yes, there is a large open space." Feiyu handed him the large agate and the wooden box. "Please help me put this away as well. I have to go out on field work tomorrow." Shang Tenin was looking at the lid of the wooden box and was stunned when he heard it. "Where's the field work? Why did the non-human department arrange for you to go out as soon as you arrived?" "It's not an arrangement of our department, but an order from the Legion. I received it on the way after get off work. Tomorrow's activity is for family members to visit and experience the surrounding environment of Shilin City." Shang Tenin frowned. "Generally speaking, everyone will adapt to the protective shield for at least a few days after landing." "How many days did you adapt?" "I'm different. When our advanced team came down, we didn't even put up a protective shield." "Active exposure," Feiyu pondered. "Can it be understood as divided into batches? Are there or no adjustment period, more or less?" She was very familiar with the history of new star development and didn't care at all. She said lightly, "We will be exposed sooner or later. There is no difference. We are here to survive by being exposed." Shang Tenin had a serious face. At this moment, he almost couldn't hold back his laughter at what she said. He smiled and earnestly instructed, "Feiyu, then you be careful tomorrow, follow the main force closely, and report to the team leader immediately if you feel uncomfortable." Feiyu nodded, pointed to the wooden box and instructed, "Put it where it is easier to get. If you want to abandon the house or move, you can get it right away. And if you encounter a big occasion, you may have to lend it to you." Shang Tenin was stunned, holding her heirloom wooden box. Seeing her eyes looking at him with clear black and white, he smiled gently, bent down and hid it carefully for her. "I'll put it here. Take a look." Feiyu glanced at it and said, "Thank you." After the discussion was over, she asked, "Are you using the bathroom now?" "No, you go first." "Okay." She turned and pressed open the small closet in the corner, then went in to wash up. Shongtan stood at the head of the bed, not bothering to move. He checked the field assistance planning system of the mechanical management department and found that there were indeed no project applications from the family tour team. Therefore, tomorrow, Feiyu's team would be escorted and supervised by the guards. Chapter 212 Sightseeing. It rained again in the morning. After the rain, Feiyu and Shongtan opened the door. Each of them stood at the end of the path in the courtyard, practiced military boxing, and completed the daily exercise program. Then they walked to the east entrance of the section to wait for the commuter bus. The neighbors were also waiting for the bus. They were a little more familiar with each other than yesterday, and they all called out to Shongdaseo. Shongtan took care of the greetings. Feiyu kept smiling and just replied with good morning and hello. Her eyes swept around. She was still the only family member in Section 13. All day yesterday, no new sisters-in-law had landed in the section. White fog covered the sky. Shongtan was worried about Feiyu's first field trip. Before parting, he whispered, "Come back and give me a video call, or apply for a service robot from the non-human department to bring it over." "Get in line first." Feiyu took a look, smiled, and boarded the commuter bus. There was a bridge at the entrance and exit of the protective shield. Guards were guarding under the bridge. Feiyu got out of the car and looked up. It was exactly the same as what Shongtan had described. The bridge looked very simple and unpretentious. Relying on the little family secrets that the old man had forced her to learn before her death, Feiyu knew at a glance that the blue stone on the bridge was made of the same material as the stone that Shongtan took home and placed in the yard. But the stone slabs were longer and larger. They were spliced together vertically to form the bridge deck, and horizontally along the slope of the bridge to form steps. From her perspective, the other end of the stone arch bridge spanning the dry riverbed was still connected to the wilderness. In fact, Shongtan said that there were some visual obstructions at the entrances and exits. The other side of the bridge was the inspection area for the personnel of the Shilin Highland Protective Shield. Only after a series of strict identity verification and physical examinations would they be allowed to go out of the city. She raised her eyes to look at the floating screen on the side of the bridge. Shongtan said that the list of field staff would scroll on it. It is still blank now. No team should have gone out yet. Luo Wang, it's still early. The thick fog hung overhead, lingering for a moment. From a distance, it looked like a stone arch bridge resting silently beneath the towering mist. Even the 2 soldiers and 2 robotic guards stationed at the bridge's entrance seemed frozen in place, the world shrouded in mist, a pure world. "Mom, do you have a mission sheet? You need one to identify yourself and cross the bridge." The soldier waited patiently for Feiyu. She arrived at the bridgehead from the parking lot, her steps unhurried, her eyes slightly erratic, her gaze darting from side to side. She was a few steps away when one of the soldiers spoke up, preempting the robotic guards on the other side. "Yes," the soldier observed, watching her calmly verify her identity and mission sheet with the robotic guards. Her manner was unfazed, unlike the 2 women who had hurried over, repeatedly asking if this was the place and who to present their mission sheet to. The woman before him was calm, perhaps too calm, perhaps the common saying of a slow-witted person. "Sister-in-law, please hurry up and get on the bridge. There are some formalities to cross," the soldier urged, kindly. "Be careful, it just rained, and the bridge is slippery." Feiyu was about to ascend the steps when she turned back, her face filled with surprise. "Isn't it anti-slip?" The paths in her yard were all anti-slip, ready for walking on once the rain stopped. "Yes," the soldier said expressionlessly. Feiyu glanced at him in confusion, but she politely thanked him anyway, turned around, and continued up the bridge. But she remained unhurried. There was still plenty of time for the gathering. As a landscape artist, observing the environment whenever she had the chance was essential. She looked at the stone lines beneath her feet, becoming increasingly certain that the blue stone in the yard was of the same lineage. The soldier stared at her, watching her pause in the middle of the bridge, then moved to the railing, peering down at the riverbed below, before slowly moving forward. The soldier's face remained stern as usual, and it was unclear what he was thinking. Feiyu walked to the other side of the bridge, and after descending the stone steps, she saw what looked like a hall. After entering the hall, a robot immediately came up and led her to a small room next to it for a physical examination and equipment installation, and then she entered the middle of the hall. There were quite a few people inside, standing in groups, and various field teams were gathering and waiting. The family tour groups were particularly conspicuous. The other teams were all men and robots. There was a team at the west end, with a dozen women standing there, and dozens of black-clad guards and robot auxiliary guards around them. Feiyu walked over. "Hello, team leader, Captain Su." Feiyu was slightly surprised. "Are you going out on field work today too?" The smiling man was none other than Su Jinkei, the training officer during the training at Camp Korichi. He strode out from the crowd of sightseeing groups, came to Feiyu, and greeted her happily. "Let's go out together today, team leader. How is it? Are you adapting to the ground?" "Adaptable." Feiyu glanced at the crowd again. Those family members looked familiar. They were all the people who disembarked with her the day before yesterday, and each family member seemed to have a guard who was familiar and chatty. She greeted politely, "Captain Su, how are you doing recently?" "Good. Today is your first time going out, and we, the former training officers, are here to lead the way." Su Jinkei raised his thumb and nodded to the crowd, smiling. "We are all brothers, I know, and it's easier to take care of you with more people. I'm worried that you might make mistakes on your first try. Team leader, you and I, plus an auxiliary guard, are an action unit. We will follow the entire team, just like playing, to experience the surrounding environment." "Yes, Captain Su." Su Jinkei chuckled, but felt a little embarrassed. "You can't touch things outside casually, and you can't bring them in privately. Have I told you all this?" "Yes." "Then there's nothing else. If you get outside and encounter any unusual situations, just report to me." As Su Jinkei spoke, he saw two senior military officers coming solemnly not far away, and hurriedly said, "The higher-ups attach great importance to this operation, and our Captain Qi and Captain Gu will lead the team personally." Feiyu glanced over and nodded with a normal expression. "Is everyone here? Line up." The man's voice was mellow, and perhaps because of the presence of family members, he didn't speak too harshly or loudly, only scanning everyone with a sharp look. "Line up next to me," Su Jinkei ordered in a low voice. No mistake. The guards quickly lined up, and in the blink of an eye, they all stood in silence. The family members stood next to the training officer and formed another line. After all, their movements were not as quick as those of the well-trained guards. Qi Changgong and Gu Jie didn't rush them, but waited patiently for them to line up. Feiyu glanced to the side. On the left was the fully armed Su Jinkei, and on the right stood the mighty robot guards silently. The security standards today were very high. She counted them. The first batch of 50 family members landed in the afternoon of the day before yesterday, and today there were 20 of them, going out for sightseeing. Qi Changgong entered the formation, his eyes scanning the first woman's clothing and equipment. He said in a gentle voice, "Hello, Ms. Shuliaya. We met on the day you landed." Mrs. Qin, who had been imitating the drill instructor's reserved expression, now relaxed, a hint of a smile on her face as she replied, "Hello, sir. Yes, you are a witness to my sacred oath." "Yes, today, I and another witness, Commander Gu, are leading the team. We are all acquaintances. You must abide by the rules and refrain from acting on your own. There's nothing else to worry about." "Okay, sir." Mrs. Qin sounded even more relaxed. Qi Changgong nodded and moved toward the second woman. "Hello, Ms. Wan Chen." He reached Feixiao's side, glanced her up and down, his tone unchanged. "Hello, Ms. Yan Feixiao." Feixiao's gaze flickered, then she turned from her gaze to meet his, answering flawlessly, "Hello, sir." Qi Changgong glanced at her and moved on to the next woman. He nodded before moving on to everyone else, but not to her. Feiyu didn't care at all about the head, only mentally reflecting that his 15 years as a farmhand had been a painful experience. Even trying to look so impressive as to sail through the water without leaving a trace was a bit of a struggle. Every encounter reminded him of a painful past, and at some point, he'd give up. His current performance proved his cultivation wasn't high. After completing the inspection process, Qi Changgong stepped out of the queue. "Let's go," he said solemnly. Chapter 213 Abyssal Valley. This is beneath the abyss. Feiyu stood on the shore, gazing into the distance through the hood of her protective suit. Most of the unknown trees only had a few leaves left on their branches, or had simply lost all their leaves, leaving only bare branches. But even so, this forest was still vast and boundless. Beyond the treetops, the sky was a pale blue. Luo Wang's guardian star, Brother Qi, was like a large disk slanting across the sky, its appearance very clear, but not vibrant enough. She squinted her eyes, and in the distance, there seemed to be a pale blue-gray mountain shadow, so pale that it could be mistaken for the original color of the sky and earth. There were towering cliffs, where the Abyss Valley began. Climbing over the cliffs was the starting point of the Chariot Sea God, their starting point for the highlands and the city. "Wow, it's so beautiful," the cheerful voice of a certain sister-in-law came from the communicator's channel. "Don't get too close," her training officer warned thoughtfully. Feiyu withdrew her gaze. The river in front of her continued to flow amidst the sound of a few people, making the sound of water increasingly imperceptible. In front of her feet, a few long, knotty grasses lay drooping in the water, constantly washed by the current, occasionally crushed by small ice cubes, and then floating lightly. In the middle of the river, icicles drifted slowly, sometimes crowded together. Under Qi light, the edges and surfaces competed to emit tiny, colorful lights. "Go forward and keep up with the people in front," Su Jinkei said behind her. Feiyu walked forward, and the robot guards followed closely beside her. They were a group of dozens of people, and they walked along the river for a while. At noon, the tour group arrived at an isolated dome at the river bend and had lunch there. "Wow, we have a base here," an older sister-in-law exclaimed in surprise. "Yes, if we are ever on an outing, this little hut will serve as a temporary resting place." Everyone entered and removed their masks. The guards, having likely seen the scenery below the abyss before, were unconcerned. The women, however, were quite new to the place, their faces gleaming with excitement, yet they showed no signs of fatigue. The hut was small and unremarkable, so everyone sat on the floor, one by one, along the wall. The robotic guards remained outside. "Did anyone forget to bring their nutrient supplements?" "No problem, I've got extra," Gu Jie asked. Seeing no response, he smiled and said, "Let's eat now. Afterward, rest here for an hour. Everyone can move around a little." Fei sipped the nutrient supplement and slowly surveyed the hut's surroundings. "Can we stay overnight here? Can anyone passing through on our high ground come in?" A lively woman asked about the hut's specific function. "In emergencies, we can definitely stay overnight. It's better than being outside," Gu Jie explained, patting the mat. "As long as it's not a designated residence for any department, anyone can come and rest." Feiyu listened carefully, catching a glimpse of Qi Changgong sitting cross-legged beside Gu Jie, and then turned away calmly. After dinner, 2 or 3 of the sisters-in-law stood up and asked, "Sir, can we go out and take a look now?" "Go ahead, the scenery is still quite good," Gu Jie said with a smile. The sisters-in-law happily agreed, shouldering their backpacks and pulling down their protective masks. "No need to wear masks," a rich voice from the ground said. "Don't stray too far during your free time. Everyone, bring your guards with you. If the guards tell you not to leave, you must turn back." The sisters-in-law hummed in agreement, took off their masks, and happily went out. Seeing this, the others said, "I'll go take a look too." "I'll go take a look." Feiyu glanced at Qi Changgong, explained to Su Jinkei, and stood up to follow him out. "This place seems okay." The older sister-in-law in front turned around and started chatting with her. Feiyu smiled and nodded. "Yes, to be honest, I saw this on the barge the day before yesterday and wondered what strange things might be hidden inside the cracked ground. It turned out to be a large valley." "Me too," another older sister-in-law came over and said. "Now it seems nothing special." "Hey, we're the first women to see the beauty of Luoyang." This made many people laugh. Feiyu stood at the river bend, looking at the woods on the opposite bank. A thick layer of fallen leaves covered the ground, making it difficult to distinguish it from the soil. Some of the tree trunks on the periphery were similar in shape, clearly belonging to the same species. Qi pale white light could only penetrate a few rows at the edge. Deeper into the woods, it was a dense, blurry mass. Her gaze turned to follow the icicles down the river. The water was gentle and quiet, leading to nowhere. "What's downstream?" she asked the auxiliary guard casually. "I can't describe it, Mom. We'll head down after the break, and you can see for yourself." Seeing Feiyu's sidelong glance at his face, seemingly studying it, the auxiliary guard explained, "Luoyang's terrain collection and mapping data system is being completed. I'm not authorized to disclose any information to ordinary citizens at this time. Feiyu ignored it, turning back to continue admiring the silken river. A slight breeze brushed her face, its coolness tinged with a hint of warmth from Brother Qion's radiance. This was unmistakably Luoyang's wind, a wind from ancient times. She lowered her head, and Brother Qiong cast her shadow on a shard of ice. The shard drifted away, and the next shard reflected her shadow again. The glint of the ice clusters in the river would briefly vanish whenever it reached her shadow. This made Feiyu feel like she was just one of those people who boiled a crane and burned as ether. She smiled faintly, and as she watched, she noticed a wave of air disturbance around her shadow's head. It was very shallow, but it was there. A piece of ice drifted by, and another piece of ice returned to cast a shadow on her head, still casting a shadow of air disturbance, as if her head were smoking, and the wisps of smoke even swayed slightly with the wind. "What is this sister-in-law doing?" Guja asked in surprise. Qi Changgong heard the voice and stood beside Guja. Through the observation window of the station dome, he saw a woman standing by the river, her hands raised to her ears. She looked strange, as if she was imitating the silly expression of a giant puppet, but also as if she was surrendering to something. "Okay, yours, go check it out," he frowned. Feiyu carefully examined the shadow of her hand, but didn't see any smoke-like light and shadow around it. She wondered if it had something to do with the protective gloves she was wearing. Team leader, Feiyu lowered her hand and turned. "Captain Su." Su Jinkei walked up to her and looked into the river. "What are you looking at, my shadow?" Feiyu raised her hand and waved. Her shadow in the river also waved back, looking quite lively. Qi Changgong heard this from the communication channel and almost couldn't help but curl his lips. Su Jinkei chuckled. Feiyu glanced at his reflection. Before she could see clearly, Su Jinkei took a step sideways, pulled her by the arm, and advised, "Team leader, it's not good to be too close to the shore. What if you accidentally fall in? Let's go somewhere else and have a look." Chapter 214 Sudden Snow. Su Jinkei walked with Feiyu for a few steps and chatted casually. "Team leader, according to your profile, you're the director of robotics in the non-human lifeforms research department. It's an easy job, isn't it? I officially worked one day yesterday, and it was fine," Feiyu said truthfully. "Your department is a bit difficult to pronounce, and it feels very advanced," Su Jinkei teased. "I have a colleague who has been on field work several times, hunting and studying tamarin creatures." "Commander Su, haven't you ever worked with our colleagues in the non-human department?" "I have been on field work too, but I haven't been with anyone in the non-human department except you. But there's plenty of time, and maybe there will be a chance to work on field work with your department in the future." Su Jinkei smiled and pointed to the dome. "This kind of rest point is very practical when you are on field work. Team leader, I'd like to take this opportunity to give you a reminder. If you need to work on field work in the future, you must find out how many rest points are available in the work area and where they are located before you set off. This way you can feel at ease when doing things and be prepared for any eventuality." "Yes, Commander Su, thank you. Why are you being polite?" Su Jinkei waved his hand. "Team leader, you can take a few slow turns and then go in. I'm going over. This rest point has just been set up, and there are still some auxiliary facilities to be improved. It's just that we are here today, and the brothers will do it, okay? Commander Su, go and get busy." Feiyu watched Su Jinkei walk towards the dome, then she continued walking around, secretly pondering the reflection she had just seen in the river. Perhaps it was because it was cold, and her head was exposed, being illuminated by Brother Qiong. Although she didn't feel it, the heat from her head continued to radiate outward, distorting the refraction of light in the upper air layer. With this thought, Feiyu wanted to go to the river to verify the light and shadow above her head. Unexpectedly, within a few steps, the sky suddenly turned dark blue. Feiyu stopped, and the robot guard beside her also stopped. They both looked up at the sky, and Brother Qiong was almost instantly obscured. "The weather is not good," the guard said. "Mom, let's not go far, let's go back." The ice river, gleaming with pearls and jade, obscured all crystal light, leaving only the pale blue-gray ripples of water, silently pushing the jagged ice blocks forward. The leafless forest on the other side seemed to push out its inner gloom as the sky darkened, enveloping the entire area solemnly at its outermost edge, barring any glimpse of the forest. The scene was profoundly oppressive. Feiyu nodded and was about to turn when something like poplar fluff drifted down from the sky, landing silently between her brows, like a touch of icy liquid clinging to her skin. Wow, what is this? A nearby woman looked up in amazement. Those white fluff, vast flakes, had arisen without a trace and, in the blink of an eye, were falling in a flurry, so light they felt almost weightless. Their pace seemed slow, yet they filled the air in an instant. Everyone's shoulders and faces were soon covered in a cloud of fluff. Fei's gaze subconsciously focused on a flake that drifted past her nose. It resembled a sparse, short feather woven from white silk, flat and with many gaps between them. Its crystal threads intertwined in a seemingly disordered yet ordered sequence, a beauty woven into its chaos. "It's snowing," the robot suddenly said. "Madam, pull down your mask and take precautions. Pull down your mask, everyone, go back inside quickly." A loud shout came from Feiyu's communication channel. At the same time, a strong wind suddenly blew up, and the snow rolled everywhere, and the vision suddenly became desolate. Feiyu pulled down her mask and saw a group of people rushing out from the dome. The first few non-commissioned officers were wearing full protective suits, shouting and rushing towards the scattered family members on the shore. The wind and snow almost swept Feiyu out, but fortunately the guard beside her hooked her waist. She tried hard to steady herself, and when she looked up again, the surroundings were hazy. She could only vaguely see the silhouettes of 1 or 2 people 5 steps away, struggling to walk against the wind. "Follow me." The guard held her tightly, and its metallic voice quickly dissipated in the raging wind. Feiyu was almost dragged off the ground by it, and they met someone halfway. The man put his arm around Feiyu's shoulder, twisted around, and gave her a strong push. "Hurry, hurry, hurry," it was Su Jinkei's voice. She opened her eyes wide. The sky was gray, but before her, countless white snowflakes drifted down, one after another, covering her visor. Through the visor, she could see the sparse gaps between the flakes, and through those gaps, she vaguely saw a dome in front of her. A beam of light shone from the doorway, illuminating 2 heavily armed figures, one on each side, waving their arms, dragging people inside. Amid the whistling sound that filled her ears, a rich, deep voice urges, "Go in, hurry, 1, 2, come here, 3, the guard, almost flying off the ground, carried her to the dome. 15, go in. The person on the left side of the doorway pulled her out from under the guard's arms and pushed her into the house. Feiyu recognized the rich voice. After stumbling to her feet, she quickly made way for the door and squeezed into the inner corner with the others in the house. Then she let out a long breath and stared at the door. Snowflakes rolled into a ball and poured into the house. 20. The family members are all here. Where are our people? Are there any left? Qi Changgong said sternly. There are 42 people and 20 auxiliary guards in the rest area. All of them are here, Gu Jie replied loudly. The door of the dome house closed immediately. Qi Changgong turned around, looked at the crowded crowd and ordered, line up and report your numbers. After all this trouble, everyone was able to sit down and rest. The space was getting more and more cramped, and Feiyu sat quietly in the corner. The sisters-in-law around were still in shock, and no one spoke. Sister-in-law, don't be afraid. It's winter here, and it's normal to snow. If the snow stops early, we'll continue sightseeing. If it continues to snow for a while, we'll wait in the house for a while and then go back, Gu Jie instructed. Feiyu could hear the lightness in his words. Through the mask, she could vaguely see the kind smile on his face. No guard took off their masks. The sisters-in-law naturally didn't take off their masks either. Feiyu looked at Qi Changgong, who was beside Gu Jie. His face was cold and stern, and no expression could be seen. Under the mask, the damp and cold feeling was very obvious on her face. Feiyu knew that it was the snow that fell on her face that melted and seeped into her skin. Half an hour later, the snow subsided. Gu Jie saw that the sisters-in-law were crowded in the house and felt stuffy, so he asked them to come and look at the window. Everything outside, the woods, the river, the beach were all covered with white snow. The sky became brighter, the wind seemed to have died down, and large flakes of snow drifted sparsely, so softly that there was no trace of power, and it continued endlessly, as if time had no meaning here. Feiyu stared for a while, then stepped back, and gave the observation position to the sister-in-law at the back. Turning around, she saw Qi Changgong and Gu Jie in the center of the room. Strangely enough, she could recognize him at a glance now, even though everyone was wearing the same protective suit that covered their heads and faces. Qi Changgong met her eyes for a moment, then cast his gaze on the other sisters-in-law at the window. The wet snow stain between Feiyu's eyebrows had melted, but the icy feeling remained. She stood quietly by the wall. The family tour group did not continue with a planned itinerary, and Gujie gave the sisters-in-law a lecture on the function of rest stops. After a while, the snow stopped and Gujie's class ended. The group boarded the Poseidon chariot and returned to the protective shield of Shilin Highlands. Chapter 215, Floating Screen at the Bridge Entrance. Ms. Yan Feiyu, thank you for your cooperation in this quarantine inspection. According to the regulations regarding personnel entering and exiting the Tongqiao Fortress in Shilin City, field personnel returning from operations must spend a certain amount of time in the restroom and receive appropriate medical care to help them recover to optimal conditions within the shield. Please proceed to restroom 101. Feiyu entered 101 and found the woman who had been in line for the inspection ahead of her already present. The room was comfortable, with each person having an adjustable long recliner, similar to a situational recovery room, but more advanced. Each recliner could be surrounded by a partition, creating its own space. The women were curious, chatting and trying out the chairs and partitions. Feiyu checked her communicator and found it was still on the mission-specific channel. Aside from the members of the tour group, the Shilin Highlands field communication port, and her work unit's communication port, she could not yet connect with anyone else within the shield. Ladies, please note that the communication screen in room 101 will soon be connected to Deputy Team Leader Colonel Gujie. The family members paused their chatter and took their places beside their chairs. Hello, sisters-in-law, did you have a good rest? Gujie looked around and said with a smile, it seems that everyone can't fall asleep immediately. It doesn't matter. It's the first time to come back from outside, and almost everyone will be excited for a long time, so our buffer period will be extended accordingly. Today's time happened to be right, and everyone will have dinner in the lounge. We are doing the same next door. If you feel bored, communicate with each other before dinner, and don't make loud noises to affect others' rest. In addition, I have a little good news to tell you. If you come back from field work and catch up with a meal, you can get extra special subsidized food. I tried it once and it was very delicious. I hope you all enjoy it later. Well, also, if you miss dinner at home, we will notify the husbands of the sisters-in-law and tell them not to wait for dinner. Feiyu heard many people laughing. She frowned and thought about it. Just as she was about to speak, she heard someone ask, Captain Gu, how long will the entire buffer period be? What should we do if we encounter curfew when we go home? Don't worry about that. Returning home from field work isn't under curfew. No matter who checks on us, we'll definitely be let through. Gujie laughed heartily, saying, enjoy dinner, ladies. I'm going to rest now, Captain Gu. Enjoy your dinner too, the ladies said in unison. The large floating figure in the center of the room held its breath. Feiyu settled into a comfortable semi-reclining position on the reclining chair. Luo Wang's first meeting of section chiefs commenced within the next half hour. The ladies hadn't had much time for deep conversation during the tour, so now, as they waited for their delicious dinner, they inevitably politely discussed their landing experiences, their families and husbands, their jobs, and community life with their neighbors. It was then revealed that all the women participating in the tour were the first women to take up residence in their section, and all had been honored as section chiefs. I don't know how section chiefs work, one of the ladies lamented. There aren't many things to rent or collect. Once the neighbors arrive, they're all introduced in a few words. Everyone laughed. Isn't that easy, said another sister-in-law. Where my family used to live, the community management was very standardized. The auntie made a schedule every month and sent it to every household in the area at the beginning of the month to coordinate the time for home visits. She often complained, saying that other professions can be delegated to robots, but hers can't have it. Everything has to be discussed face to face. God, how can she do anything else then? Someone said in surprise. The auntie you are talking about is a professional community management consultant, right? We are now a part-time public welfare worker, that's what you say. But think about it, we got a little more social contribution points, so even if it's a part-time job, we have to do it part-time. Why didn't I know that the section chief could get a few more points? It's in the supplementary regulations of the community management regulations. You haven't had time to read it yet, I'll show it to you. Oh, that's true. It's not easy to get these points. I'm enthusiastic, but I have no past experience and I'm still groping in the dark. How can I guide the neighbors? Hey, I suddenly have an idea. Don't we all have no experience in community management? But we have been managed before. We are all spread all over the planet. Let's talk about how our former community management consultants worked. Wouldn't it be possible to learn from everyone's strengths by combining our knowledge? Good idea. Good idea. Feiyu touched her forehead. The cold feeling of snowflakes melting on it had been completely replaced by a normal warmth. She had other worries now. It would be her turn to talk about it soon. Why didn't she remember that there was a community management consultant in Hisan district? Shongtanen's Zuli district seemed to have one. It sounded like the instructor who had guided the young and ignorant him to check all the boxes on the Alliance application form. I spend most of my time at school, so I don't pay much attention to family matters, she thought for a moment and offered a management example. But when I lived on campus, the dormitories had floor leaders who were responsible for arranging cleaning shifts in the common areas. Yes. Public hygiene is also a very important issue. We need to communicate with a community service center. Are the common areas in front of and behind the houses managed by our section leaders, or by the municipal sanitation agency? Oh, it's terrible. There are no detailed guidelines at the moment. Patience. We've only been here a few days? Luo Wongli hasn't even been here for half a month. Amidst everyone's laughter, the older sister-in-law waved her hand and said seriously, patience. Let's lay out the general framework first, and then we can gradually refine it. Captain Qi, Captain Gu, 5 men have gathered at the first crossing of Tongkao. They all say they're waiting for their wives who haven't returned from field work. Qi Changgong and Gu Jie exchanged a glance. Handle it according to the regulations, Qi Changgong said, pursing his lips. Gu Jie reached out and opened the surveillance screen beneath the first entrance. It was pitch black outside. Zuyu, half visible in the upper northeast corner of the screen, was the brightest spot. Under the bridge. Only because someone was approaching did a circle of dim yellow light, based on the sensor level, emanate, surrounding the forward position of the sentry post. I suggest that you all go back in time, the soldier said in a flat voice. A night curfew will be implemented in an hour. If you walk or stay outside the living area unless it is necessary for work, you will be subject to admonition, investigation, detention or other coercive measures. Please refer to the curfew management regulations of Shiling Highlands for details. Brother, we don't mean anything else, we just want to know if our wives are back, one person said anxiously. Look, her name is still on the screen at your crossing, and the status is still departure. What's going on? I came here before and saw that the men in other field teams have all returned, but the women are still outside. Are we assured? The details of the progress of the field team will not be announced to the sentry here. I understand your feelings, but there is no detailed information to tell you. I suggest you go back and wait patiently. Shongtanen looked up at the floating screen on the side of the bridge, on which the 3 words Yan Feiyu were scrolling every once in a while. Chapter 216 Small Painting Frame. If we could wait patiently, we wouldn't have come, the man next to Shongtanen said. It's late at night, and it's freezing cold. Brother, it's not easy for anyone, right? Could you please ask your superiors for us? We received a notice at dusk, saying only that they need to return late for a field work, but it's so late now, they should be back after a day out. If they don't come back at this time, is there something wrong? You should at least give us a definite answer, right? My wife has only been down for 2 days. She can't go out with you to watch the sunset and then disappear, right? See. These family members are so nagging after they come down, and they are not considerate enough to serve us. Qi Changgong quickly lifted his long legs and put them on the desk. He leaned back in his chair and blew a breath, as if he couldn't get rid of his irritation. We used to be so straightforward. Whoever was asked to stay for as long as they wanted, would stay as long as they wanted, and everyone would do as they were told. It's understandable, Gu Jie was helpless. How about I go over and ask them to leave? No need. What do you think this place is? Qi Changgong said solemnly, mid-sentence, when he saw a figure on the surveillance screen take 2 steps forward. It looked exactly like the young lady's S-rank husband. He snorted, do you still expect someone to greet you politely? Brother, Shongtanen, at the bridgehead, suppressed his anxiety and spoke kindly. We have indeed received notices that the families will be returning late, which means that the Field Affairs Department can tell us about the progress. We have also been on field missions and know that information transmission requires time. Now that so much time has passed, the specific situation of the tour group should be clearer. Brother, can you report it, or help us ask inside? He pointed to the dark field behind the bridge, which was visually obscured. Any latest news from the families? Qi Changgong turned away. Hey, I know this guy. Qi Changgong couldn't help but turn around and look at Gu Jia. He's the deputy director of the planning department of the machinery management department. He has been on joint field missions twice. He's a nice and capable person. Qi Changgong raised an eyebrow and said, "Oh, this time, both those with bad tempers and those without are here demanding information." Gu Jia sighed. "Let them ask for it. Anyone who breaches the sentry post will be detained, and anyone who remains outside after curfew will be taken away," Qi Changgong said casually. "You should explain. Anyone who can get a car to get here at this time is no ordinary person, and the cars haven't been released to the families yet," Gu Jia chuckled. "After all, these are the first batch of families. A big impact wouldn't be good, and it would cause panic among those who come after. We should tell them to go back. We're treating them humanely because we're afraid of the negative impact. We sent a notice, and they're still not satisfied. You still want more clarity? How much clearer can the Legion regulations be?" Qi Changgong scoffed, exhaling heavily, and waving the surveillance screen away. "There's a huge difference between managing a single soldier and managing this kind of family service. The difficulty is not on the same level. We're lucky that the conscription office didn't recruit all of them. Otherwise, just give an order to anyone and the whole family will pounce on you." Gu Jia laughed at what he said, and then sighed. "Having said that, it's not easy for these brothers to be exiled here. They have to work and take care of the family. It's not easy for these sisters-in-law too. What do you say about other women? They are in the prime, aren't they, enjoying their youth and buying clothes? Alice, after all, we have it the hardest. We can't escape being on duty wherever we go. What's going on?" Qi Changgong couldn't help laughing. "Fatty Jet, are you sleepy or what? Why are you so talkative all of a sudden?" Gu Jia yawned loudly. "A little bit." There was no one else in the room, so he stretched one leg on the table, stretched comfortably, and admired Qi Changgong opposite him. "Aki, it is indeed more comfortable this way. You are so cruel to me in scheduling. I haven't slept properly for more than 10 days. I was scared to death today." He patted his chest in a funny way, and said with lingering fear, "If these sisters-in-law were lost one or two the first time." He shook his head, indicating that he couldn't think about it anymore. "Fatty Jack, you're too kind." Qi Changgong shrugged. "These people are nothing. The Alliance wouldn't choose them. Don't worry, they're not easy to deal with." Gu Jia chuckled, flicking open the surveillance screen again and glancing at it. "They're still here, not a single one missing. What should we do? Should we wait until curfew is over before leaving?" Qi Changgong lowered his eyes and thought for a moment. Then he said coldly, "Tell the first checkpoint to tell them that the people have returned and are resting in the buffer zone as required. If you want to take them back without buffering, just apply. Anyone who continues to harass the checkpoint will be considered a hazard to the fortress's security." Feiyu's eyes rolled, and her eyelashes fluttered. She felt darkness all around her, and only the soft sound of her own breathing lingered in her ears. The warm air from her nose gently caressed her lips. Room 101, C9, awake, eyes unopened. Gu Jia, startled awake by the alarm, leaped up from his makeshift bed. Glancing sideways, he saw Qi Changgong, also sitting upright, the bed beneath him rapidly folding into a chair, wheeling him over to his desk. "What's going on?" Gu Jia said, without a hint of amusement, almost instantly moving to his desk to check the surveillance footage beamed in from the infirmary next door. Room 101 was utterly silent, its screen neatly divided by partitions. Qi Changgong pointed to C9, muttered a muffled curse, and clicked agree below the displayed ethics and privacy notice. He tilted his head slightly, and Gu Jia, in unison, reached out, past a gap above his shoulder, and, without even reading, clicked agree with familiarity. C9 suddenly filled the screen. The bed and other accessories dimmed to match the surroundings, leaving only the person standing out in a bright spot, making him appear to float before him. But the woman's sleeping posture was too dignified, her hands clasped beneath her chest, eyes closed, and she lay on her back, straight and rigid, resembling a standard mannequin. Qi Changgong stared at her face, frowning, and reached out to move the screen an inch further away, so that it wouldn't look like she was lying at his elbow. Gu Jia pulled up a row of physiological data. "The system is too sensitive. How can she be awake? Her eyes haven't even opened." He wasn't an expert, so he couldn't clearly understand the specific meaning of the numbers. He quickly glanced at the reference values. "Still normal," he said. "Is she a light sleeper, about to wake up?" Let's take a look. Her eyelashes fluttered slightly, thin and long. Her eyes moved very slowly. Qi Changgong could even count her breaths. After a while, she rolled over and lay on her side. Her neck was slightly bent, her face was slightly drawn in, her shoulders were slightly hunched, and her eyes were still quietly closed. Is the room temperature off? It seems cold. Gu Jie rechecked his physiological data. The temperature is fine. Qi Changgong rubbed his face vigorously, crossed his legs and rested them on the corner of the table. The soles of his boots pointed at Feiyu's head. Fatty Jack, I'm going to rest for a while. I'll have the energy to deal with any trouble when it comes. Gu Jie smiled, his spirits rising considerably. He readily agreed, okay, you might as well stretch out and get some sleep. I'm watching. Azao's gang next door are professionals. Any trouble won't escape their attention. I'll call you if anything happens. How dare you sleep with my eyes open? Qi Changgong chuckled, lifted his eyelids, glanced at Feiyu, half-closed them, pressed his heels against Feiyu's face on the screen, and continued to rest. He did this 4 or 5 times, opening and closing his eyes, but the person on the screen slept in a steady position, mostly staying still. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 217 Blockade. Room 101, Position 9 has fallen back into deep sleep, and his vital signs are normal. The sound of the all-clear rang out in the room. Qi Changgong opened his eyes completely, glanced at the screen, and turned his head to look at Gu Jie again. Gu Jie shrugged, a hint of envy on his face. He's asleep again. I said he was about to wake up. Qi Changgong turned around and cancelled the full-screen display. The person curled up in position 9 suddenly retreated and shrank back into the small frame. Sleep, sleep, he waved to Gu Jie, and the chair under him bounced back to the wall and unfolded into a bed. Let Zhao and the others continue to watch, and we'll take a nap, okay? Gu Jie slurred, inserted his fingers to the top of his head, scratched it, and fell asleep comfortably, muttering, don't make trouble, and don't wake up. This kind of startling will make everyone uneasy. Sleep, sleep. Feiyu woke up again and heard the chattering around. Oh, we were all here yesterday? Why didn't anyone tell us to leave? Oh, are we supposed to go to work today? What time is it now? Oh, I haven't been home all night. I don't know what's going on at home. She opened her eyes and saw the ceiling of the small partitioned room. It was a clean, snow-white color, exactly the same as yesterday. Attention ladies, the communication screen in room 101 will soon be connected to Deputy Team Leader Colonel Gu Jie. Feiyu sat up, smoothed her hair with her fingers, removed the partition, and looked around. The sisters-in-law were in good spirits, almost the same as yesterday. The most agile sister-in-law rushed from the others' beds to her own. The most enthusiastic sister-in-law, with a sharp eye, greeted her from a distance. Good morning, you're up too, to inform me. Good morning. Feiyu smiled politely, stood up politely, and sat at the head of her own bed. The communication screen in the center of the room flashed. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Did you sleep well last night? Gu Jie looked energetic. In the picture, in a corner behind him, the instructors accompanying the sightseeing group were lined up, all of them looking heroic. It's really unfortunate that everyone has a buffer period this time. Everyone fell asleep after dinner yesterday, so I simply didn't disturb you. So you have to start from here to go to work today. There will be breakfast, which is just as delicious. Gu Jie laughed. By the way, you can tell your family on the way to let them rest assured. Several gentlemen came to ask yesterday, but so many sisters-in-law were resting, so no one was put on guard. It's time to go to work and say hello later. If anyone still feels tired and wants to ask for leave, you can ask now and we will issue a certificate to the unit. Oh, and let's count who needs to book a commuter bus to go back. I guess most of the sisters-in-law were sent by the unit to pick them up, and there may not be a cart to pick them up so early. Captain Gu, me, okay. Gu Jie counted with a smile on his face, looking at the few people who didn't raise their hands. These sisters-in-law, can you go back by yourselves? I drove here by myself, one person said. Someone from our unit has to go on an outing today, and I was wondering. The older sister-in-law hesitated. Should we wait in the parking lot and go back on the way? Sure, but it's best to coordinate with the unit first. If the wait is long, you can take the bus back with everyone else. We'll make sure to drop you off at the office door one by one." The older sister-in-law nodded, and Gujia looked at Feiyu. "What about this older sister-in-law? I drove here too." "Okay," Gujia smiled, then looked at everyone and asked, "Do you have any questions? I'll be leaving here soon. Even if our tour group officially disbands, if we forget anything, there's no one to ask." "Captain Gu, will you organize tours like this in the future? We just went somewhere yesterday, and Luo Wang still has a lot of movies he hasn't seen yet." "It depends on the schedule. It depends on the schedule. I also want to relax after work." Gujia laughed. "Captain Gu, if there's another opportunity to go sightseeing, will you still lead us?" "Haha, thank you all for your kindness. If there's a chance, I'd be happy to do it." The communication screen went dark, and everyone happily finished their breakfast. A large group of people waited for news of the commuter bus. Feiyu and two others turned into the hall, ready to leave on their own. At 6:15 in the morning, the hall was empty. Only a few robot guards were patrolling. Feiyu paused, looked to the side and back at the sound, and said in surprise, "Tannen." A dozen meters away, Shang Tannen, wearing a protective suit, strode towards her quickly, followed by two handsome neutral robots who glided silently behind him. Feiyu smiled humbly and said goodbye to the sister-in-law who was traveling with her. She walked towards him and asked curiously, "You have to go out on field work so early?" "I came a little early." Shang Tannen looked her up and down, glanced at the two sisters-in-law who were walking away, turned his eyes back, and asked in a low voice, "What happened yesterday?" "I encountered a snowstorm." Feiyu glanced at the robot behind him and said no more. "I'm going back to work now." "Are you planning to go home tonight?" "Going home?" Shang Tannen smiled and said softly, "It's blocked." Feiyu raised an eyebrow suddenly, scanned his face, and looked at the two robots behind him again. "5 steps, Shang Tannen said in a low voice. It was safe for them to talk within 5 steps. Feiyu stared at him silently. "Were you blocked outside for a long time by the snow? Was it dangerous?" Shang Tannen asked anxiously again. "We didn't wear masks." Shang Tannen was stunned. "Did it fall directly on the skin?" Feiyu glanced at him and raised her hand to point between her eyebrows. "So your buffer period is longer than the normal process," Shang Tannen said in a deep voice. The sound of military boots clacking. His eyes flashed, and he looked in the direction of the sound. At the entrance of a passage not far away, 2 people strode out, both wearing the purple stamen-sleeved collared military uniform of higher-ranking commanders. One was tall and handsome, and the other was a little sturdy. They talked as they walked, accompanied by 2 auxiliary guards, who seemed to be reporting to them. Feiyu paused with her hand on her brow, brushed her hair in front of her forehead, and half-turned to look over. The hall was quiet, and the 2 officers quickly saw Shang Tannen and Feiyu in the center. Somehow, they also turned around and seemed to say hello. "They are all wearing them, and none of their families are." Her lips moved slightly. "No mistake, 1 poem, 1 post, 1 content, 1 6, 1 book, 1 bar, take a look." "Yes," Shang Tannen said softly, took her hand, smiled at the group of people approaching, and greeted them loudly. "Captain Qi, Captain Gu, good morning, good morning, Deputy Chief Shang." Gujie glanced at Shang Tannen, then at Feiyu. "So the eldest sister-in-law is your wife?" "Good morning, Deputy Chief Shang." Qi Changgong nodded slightly. Feiyu leaned against Shang Tannen with a faint smile, looking like a chaste and virtuous daughter-in-law. "Deputy Chief Shang arrived early today." "Which team are you from?" Gujie asked with a smile. "The hydrographic team led by Commander Xiao." Shang Tannen pointed at the robot behind him, looking very familiar with it. "I went in to test the underwater operation of this model." He smiled and raised his eyebrows, looking at Feiyu. "My wife is here to buffer, so I came early and happened to run into her. She was about to go out for work." "Oh, Deputy Director Shang, you people with families make us lonely people so envious." Gujie pointed at Shang Tannen, laughing and shaking his head. No, Shang Tannen said modestly. "One more person." He glanced at Feiyu, smiled and turned his head away, coughed, and said frankly, "There are always more things to worry about." "Envy." Gujie laughed. "Deputy Director Shang, it was Commander Qi who led the team yesterday. The sisters-in-law had a great time swimming, right, Sister Shang?" "Yes," Feiyu blurted out 2 words crisply, "and it was over. So it's Commander Qi and Commander Gu who are leading the team." Feiyu hasn't told me about it yet. Shang Tanin took over naturally and said gratefully, thank you for your hard work, both of you. What's hard about it? It's all my job. Gujie turned his head to glance at Qi Changgong, who had been standing aside without saying anything. Gujie ended the greetings. Deputy Director Shang, Sister Shang, then I won't bother you anymore. Commander Qi and I will go back to lead the team for training. We'll talk again when we have a chance. Goodbye, Commander Qi, Commander Gu, Shang Tanin said with a smile. After they walked away, Feiyu turned her head and asked, are you very familiar with them? Not really. Commander Gu escorted me on the field. Commander Qi, Shang Tanin turned around to look at Feiyu and said comfortingly, we met after we came down. On the surface, there was nothing wrong. Feiyu couldn't help but turn her head and glance at Qi Changgong's back at the exit. The scene in which he casually told his sisters-in-law not to wear masks immediately emerged in her mind. She frowned and realized that her hand was still being held by Shang Tanin. She immediately pulled it out and said in a low voice, you don't have to pretend. There's no need to show everyone how loving we are. You'd better keep a safe distance from me in the next few days. Shang Tanin glanced at her and shook his head. You'll be fine, I hope so, otherwise you'll be in trouble too. Feiyu frowned. Don't be afraid, Feiyu. We are here to survive by being exposed. Everyone, sooner or later. This was exactly what Feiyu had said the night before. Feiyu looked at Shang Tanin. His face was delicate and his features were clear. He looked no different from the gentle and modest look he had when he was studying at his alma mater, Donglan. Good people are always less cunning than others. She pursed her lips and nodded. Are you feeling any discomfort? Shang Tanin's eyes swept across her face and asked with concern. Not yet. If there is, I will tell you the first time. That's not what I meant, I know. I mean, we are a community, and our fortunes and misfortunes are all counted together. Feiyu took a deep breath and said, I'm not sure about what happened yesterday. Be careful when you go out. Shang Tanin looked at her, regretting bringing her here more than ever. He walked her to the exit, and through the crack in the door, he saw her walking towards the bridge until her back was blocked by the door. Shang Tanin turned around, looked at the two robots standing silently beside him, and found a corner to wait for the other teammates to come. The bridge was open, and the moisture on the bridge surface had dried up. There was no trace of the drizzle for half an hour in the early morning. Feiyu walked on the bluestone bridge, and when she looked up, she saw the high-arched white mist. The fields were endless under the bridge, and the world was wild and fresh. Just like when she came yesterday. Chapter 218 There is a stone in the ancestor's house. Feiyu watched the gate for half a month. During this half-month, a lot of things happened. The second phase of the garden building behind the non-human department has begun to take shape, and the anti-clearing belt in the front has been built in full swing. When Feiyu looked at the gate, the bare wilderness outside the window was no longer there. She could now see the construction team wandering in the wilderness from time to time. Shang Tanin finally coordinated 2 service robots for the non-human department, and there were 2 more of Feiyu's machine subordinates in the first maintenance warehouse. Minister Jin represented the non-human department and often had business entertainment activities. He naturally took one of them as an attendant secretary, and Feiyu sent the other one to the colleague's big office, usually serving tea, pouring water, wiping tables and chairs. The most important thing is that all the remaining people on the Chuxiu have disembarked. The Luoyang Legion has so far all landed in Luoyang. The 9 families from Section 13 of Qinggyan Group had all come to visit her, the section head. Now, the mornings at Section East exit waiting for the shuttle bus were bustling with activity, like Section 13's daily meeting. Shang Tanin automatically assumed the role of section head's assistant, patiently listening to the neighbors' daily needs. If he couldn't help, he would answer on Fei's behalf. Okay, we'll report it. However, after get off work, Fei felt a little awkward getting off the bus alone at Section East exit, crossing the main road in front of every household, and returning to her own home in Section West. She had memorized the names and occupations of all her neighbors, but she hadn't yet matched them to their faces. Most importantly, she hadn't yet become familiar with the couples themselves. If 2 or 3 families were chatting on the street at dusk and saw her cheerfully greet her, Sister Shang, you're off work, she could only greet them in a general way, never addressing them individually, for fear of separating the couples for no reason. Therefore, Shang Tanin would always be busy until after dark before returning home under the moonlight. Feiyu thought this was actually quite good. Ever since her sightseeing trip, she seemed to have been forgotten by the field work plan. She had never been sent out to the Shilin Protective Shield again, and there wasn't much work in the non-human department. Every day at work, she just worked the gate and left on time. It was very regular and leisurely. She always came home a little early, just enough time for the neighbor's sister-in-law to visit. When Xiang Tannen came home, every household had closed their doors and went to bed. He described to her how, from the commuter bus at night, the lights in the residential area were becoming more and more prosperous. Every day, the appearance of Shilin Heights was changing and progressing. Fortunately, her appearance had not changed. When she looked in the mirror, she still had black eyes, almond-shaped eyes, black eyebrows, red lips, and a pink face. The dark red hair behind her ear had neither faded nor darkened, and it was still the same. Feiyu secretly observed herself for half a month. After a simple spray and a look in the mirror every day, she felt relieved. "I'm ready, you can go." She pushed open the door to the small room. Yet, Xiang Tannen looked up and smiled. Then continued squatting on the ground to assemble the robot. Those were the parts he brought from Maman. Feiyu looked at the small robot that was almost completed and asked sincerely, "You are from the planning department, in charge of robot allocation. If you make this, will people mistakenly think that you are embezzling public property at this stage?" "No, all our luggage and belongings have been registered. In fact, many people have dismantled their personal robots and brought them here. These days, they have been asking the mechanical management department whether their families can use personal robots. The Highland City Hall has also sent a letter to discuss. The Legion may have to set up a mechanical assisted tools compliance committee." Xiang Tannen fiddled with the robot and continued, "The minister has also submitted my name to the committee list." Feiyu nodded. The landing life began with great fanfare. These days, in addition to the fact that all the built communities have residents, various organizations have sprung up like mushrooms after rain. Part-time jobs are no longer uncommon, and almost everyone has to work harder. So, sooner or later, robots brought by individuals will comply with regulations. They won't be confiscated. Xiang Tannen smiled. At present, it is tentatively planned that the owner of the personal robot will take it to the machinery management department for registration. After the system is tested and there are no problems, it can be used at home. If this significantly reduces the length of time a family rents a community service robot, there may be a small amount of compensation in the form of social contribution points. These details are still under discussion. However, if the Legion needs it, the owner cannot refuse paid requisition under any circumstances. This general principle has been established. Paid requisition is better, Feiyu asked casually. The conditions should be more favorable, right? The draft hasn't reached this level yet. Xiang Tannen chuckled and asked, "What functions do you want to load on it, besides ordinary housework? The house is so small now, and the space it can use is limited." "I think renting a community robot will be enough," Feiyu said truthfully, and suddenly something moved in his mind. After thinking for a while, he glanced at him. "What restrictions does your department have on the functions of household robots?" "General household needs will not be disabled. The purpose of our testing is to ensure that personal robots do not obtain sensitive external data." Feiyu nodded and decided to change the order of the conversation before going to bed. "Tannen, I'll give you a document." Xiang Tannen was stunned. Seeing that she spoke so formally, he quickly put down the work at hand and suspiciously opened the communicator to receive it. Seeing this, he couldn't help but smile. Description of the stone? The Yunking stone excavated from the construction site of the Shilin Highland Command? The stones in our yard, didn't you say that they were moved from the waste materials on the construction site to be used as stools? Recently, there has been a construction team working in our department. The person in charge said that he is in the same department as our former neighbors, Mr. Gu and Mr. Yin. During the tea break, he heard me talking about not being able to sit on the waste stone stools, so he gave me a document. Feiyu met Xiang Tannen's gaze, pulled the corner of her mouth slightly, and explained in more detail, "I am the Security Affairs Coordinator of the Non-Human Department. I have to give me a copy of the materials and documents of the objects unearthed from the department's construction site. This is for reference, no mistakes in one poem, one post, one content, one book, one forum. That day you suddenly asked me about the time and place of moving the stones. Was it because of this?" Xiang Tannen glanced at Feiyu. She would never do something meaningless, and she would specially find someone to talk to after work. Thinking of this, he looked at her with amusement. Time, place and reason are very important. They are elements of storytelling. The document shows the time of excavation, the first day of the first month of the first year of Luo Wen calendar. The excavation location is Shilin Highland. The reason for excavation is the construction of the command center. Feiyu raised her eyebrows towards the outside of the door. Your stone is ordinary, nothing surprising. However, with these stories, it may not be ordinary in 100 years. Moreover, I have confirmed that the other Yunqing stones excavated at the same time were used to repair the bridge at the boundary of the protective shield. This is another illusion. Keep this statement. Also, when you move around in the future, don't throw away the stone if there is a spare place. Wait 100 years, or even don't use it. After Luo Wen builds the Planet Memorial Hall, the stone powder will have meaning, Feiyu said kindly. Shuang Tianan was speechless after listening for a long while, and he couldn't help laughing. Feizai, you think, so thoughtful, he praised, and looked at Feizai again, thinking that she had said before that she was not very good at making money, but she was probably too modest, and the family inheritance factor should not be underestimated. I just went to the construction site to check the operation of the construction robot. During the test, I asked it to pick up a piece of waste stone and move it a long distance, he chuckled. The story is more complete and fills in the details of the channel the ancestor obtained. Feizai shrugged. Shuang Tianan was stunned. He had just become the ancestor, and he felt that he almost got a stitch in his chest because of her laughter. But, this kind of stone is really, a lot. I can see it when I go out on field work, he pointed out embarrassedly. Chapter 219 Shang Yanai. So what? Feiyu did not hide anything and showed Shuang Tianan the stone sutra that the old man had whispered to her before. Other cloud blue stones have nothing to do with the first human settlement in Luoyang's history, and they were not chosen to be excavated on the first day of the first month of the first year of the Luoyang calendar. Tianan, historical value is also value, and it fluctuates without an upper limit. The material is a bit ordinary, but the story is unique, and the value cannot be underestimated. It's like you landed on the first day of the first month of the first year of the Luoyang calendar. Now the Chronicle Department records the event of your advance landing. In the future, the history of Luoyang Star will never be able to avoid this historical event, nor will it be able to avoid the names of people like you. There are so many people in the entire alliance, doing this and that every day, so what? Only you are the first group to land in Luoyang. Therefore, you deserve special attention, and the stones too. Shuang Tianan couldn't help but laugh again after hearing this. He sighed, his eyes brimming with smiles. Feizai, if that stone is really valuable, you can take it and put it in your home in Momang. You already have a lot of stones at home, so it's just right to put it here. I don't want it. It's yours, Feizai said truthfully. The so-called value is just my own expectation. Don't expect too much. I don't expect it. Shuang Tianan pursed his lips. Feizai paused. That's good. She thought that the topic of the stone should be over. The information document she asked for was at least a token of her appreciation. Now that her appreciation had been expressed, she organized her words a little and changed the subject. Tianan, those people who came to your mechanical management department to inquire about private robots, have they ever mentioned asking for some customized systems? Shuang Tianan's eyes wandered over Feiyu's face twice, shook his head, and said softly, not yet. If there are in the future, or if your department needs to customize some special systems, or if there are simulation projects that can be outsourced. Feiyu was a little embarrassed. Please tell me, if our department uses simulations, it is the official business of the Legion. We can directly borrow them, or ask other departments for assistance. Feiyu thought about it. Yes, they are all Legion members. There is no need to count the Legion tasks in the private studio, and she felt a little lost. If those individuals need a simulated scene to customize the system, I will definitely tell you, Shuang Tianan said gently, and when he saw her eyes light up, he smiled and said, Feizai, we have actually just landed not long ago, you don't have to rush. Most people are still adapting, I know, thank you. Feizai was very satisfied. Although the red scarf of the Shimu family had not yet opened, it had laid a powerful channel with Shuang Tianan. When Luo Wang's life was on track, everyone would be well off and the market demand would come. At that time, matters such as the studio address would not restrict her like when she was in Momang. The professionals in various fields recruited by Luo Wang were almost targeted and fixed, and she had few competitors in the same industry. The prospects for her business were very good. Do you need my help? She pointed at the robot on the ground and asked. Thinking that Shuang Tian'an would share it with her after he built it, she volunteered, I don't have any requirements for the system. If you want to load special functions on it, I can make a simulation for you at any time. Well, Shuang Tian'an said with a smile, then I will load ordinary housekeeping functions on it now. Taking advantage of this round of registration, I will take it to the department to register first. You can keep it at home and try it slowly. If there is a simulation project, you can use it as a prototype for testing. Feiyu listened and thought it made a lot of sense. She was a person who was going to open a business, but she didn't think of bringing a blank prototype before leaving. She just thought that her knowledge was enough. She suddenly missed Shuang Tian'an's kindness and felt that if she succeeded in business, she would have to give Shuang Tian'an some of the profits. Shuang Tian'an patted the robot's shoulder, walked around, and said to Feiyu, there are unified regulations for submitting names. It should be called Shuang Yan, a combination of our surnames. Number 1. All robots in the family should be named like this in the future. Okay, how is it? This was Shuang Tian'an's first personal robot. When he was putting together the parts in Mamen, he took Feiyu's needs into consideration. Feiyu stood across from Shuang Yan, just at eye level. It seems to be more delicate. Yeah, Shuang Tian'an smiled. Feiyu took a closer look. It looked neither male nor female. It stood silently with its hands lowered. The internal core had not yet been activated, and its whole body had a soft matte glow. She liked it very much. Not bad. The two of them had a pleasant exchange. After a while, Shuang Tian'an would finish his work and the two would rest. Feiyu went to wash up before Shuang Tian'an. When it was Shuang Tian'an's turn, he came out of the small room and was shocked. Feiyu, what are you doing? Feiyu moved the sleeping bag he had just laid out to the wall where he slept on the floor. She was laying out her own sleeping bag. Go to sleep. It's my turn to sleep on the floor. You can't, Shuang Tian'an said hurriedly. It's been half a month since I came back from my trip. I'm in good shape and shouldn't be a problem. Let's switch today. You don't need to worry about the bed having any impact on you. I'm not worried about the impact. But I'm used to sleeping in a sleeping bag. There's no need to change, Shuang Tian'an argued anxiously, but he couldn't drag her up. Lights out, good night. Feiyu lay down in the sleeping bag crisply. Shuang Tian'an looked down at her face, but didn't want to go too close. Feiyu closed her eyes and ignored him completely. After a while, he sighed and turned off the lights. The moonlight shone in white. Feiyu listened to the murmurs in the room and, imitating Shuang Tian'an's usual side-sleeping habits, quietly turned over and slept facing the wall. Feiyu, if you're cold, you'd better sleep in bed. She suddenly opened her eyes, the direction of the voice sounding strange. Where are you sleeping? Shuang Tian'an was sleeping on the floor, on the other side of the bed. It's still a little cold at night, but I'm used to it. It's not a big deal, he said earnestly. You'd better sleep in bed. If you catch a cold, it will be linked to the snowy incident, which will be difficult to deal with. We might even need additional observation. Feiyu stared angrily at the two moons outside. The clear night made their window look like a large square of thin crystal. Shuang Yan stood quietly by the door, watching them. She was originally filled with gratitude towards Shuang Tian'an. She had few friends, but since they formed a welfare community, she clearly felt that she had received a lot of care from him. But care should be based on mutual fairness. Shuang Tian'an, insisting on being a gentleman, always gave way to her at Camp Koriki. However, they had been tenting for several months, both using sleeping bags, and only spending time in the dormitories at the beginning and end. His insistence on sleeping on the floor didn't seem unfair. Luo Wang's arrival marked the real beginning of things, but this pattern was definitely not a long-term solution. The weather was growing colder. Now, Feiyu was furious at Shuang Tian'an's ingratitude and his breaking of the rules. Then leave the bed empty, she said calmly, closing her eyes. I'll sleep in my sleeping bag as long as I sleep in the bed, and will rotate them regularly. Feiyu, Shuang Tian'an, unable to persuade her, gave up and slept on the floor on the other side of the bed, leaving it empty, figuring she could always go to bed if she felt cold in the middle of the night. The room was silent, with only the sound of their breathing on the floor to the left and right of the bed. Wide moonlight streaked in from the courtyard, evenly covering Feiyu's sleeping bag, the bed, and Shuang Tian'an's. The communicator suddenly chimed. Chapter 220 Inspector Ent. Feiyu's eyes snapped open. The communication screen displayed a message from the community. Ms. Yan Feiyu, Section Head of Section 13, Qingyang Unit 1, the plump, elderly auxiliary security woman, silhouetted in the moonlight, said with a smile, "I'm the Qingyang Community Safety Inspector. How are you?" Feiyu paused, not connecting to the live feed. "I'm fine. What can I do for you?" "It's like this. It seems that the bed in room 1, section 13, Qingyang Unit 1, where you live, isn't in use. Since it's already the designated sleeping time after curfew, I have to disturb you. Are you and your husband feeling unwell and haven't slept yet?" Feiyu frowned, sat up, and casually brushed her hair from her forehead. "The signal from my room's facilities indicates we're not asleep." On the other side of the bed, Shang Tannen also sat up. Feiyu tilted her head to glance at him, her gaze flicking to the bed. The moonlight softly covered half of the bed, illuminating the printed pattern. The other half of the pattern was not illuminated by the moonlight, and was quietly hidden in the darkness along with the empty pillow at the head of the bed. "The auxiliary security lady in the white moonlight always looks kind. There may be a small problem with your housing facilities, but I just did a rough check and the signal feedback channel is not blocked. If you activated a bed facility to fall asleep some time ago, and I didn't receive it correctly here, then there should be a deep-seated conduction disorder. I must urgently contact the maintenance department for repairs and a comprehensive inspection to ensure the safety of your home." "Excuse me, have you activated a bed facility?" "No, why is that?" The aunt immediately showed concern. "It's very late now. Feiyu said with a cold face, "had a quarrel, and now we are sitting on the ground angry, and no one wants to sleep." The aunt was deeply worried. "Ms. Feiyu, would you mind showing the picture on your side? It's not convenient. We have changed into pajamas." "Oh," the aunt nodded, but did not force it, but she immediately suggested earnestly, "How can I help? I have a basic family conflict mediation system. Do you and your husband need me to intervene in the mediation?" "Thank you, no need. Our conflicts will be resolved by ourselves, Ms. Feiyu." Promptly resolving family conflicts is also a special area of safety inspections. "Based on the situation you've described, I anticipate that your and your husband's sleep patterns and, consequently, your daily physical health, will be compromised. Since you declined my immediate remote intervention and mediation, I would like to recommend 2 other solutions. The first is for you and your husband to temporarily put your dispute aside and go to sleep. I will contact the medical center and request a professional family care provider, who will provide you with post-dispute care services as early as tomorrow. The second option is that if you and your husband decide to continue the dispute, I will immediately initiate the community's accidental dispute mediation process and ask Ms. Wang Yiwu, the head of Qingyang Group 1, to conduct on-site mediation for you. However, Ms. Wang Yiwu is currently asleep, and her housing unit is located in Section 1 of Qingyang Group 1, quite far from your home. I would recommend that she assign Ms. Samir, the head of Section 12 of the closer group, to mediate. She should arrive in 15 minutes. Ms. Feiyu, could you and your husband calm down for 15 minutes? Feiyu, let me speak." Shang Tannen stood up from the other side of the bed, walked around to Feiyu's sleeping bag and squatted down. In the white moonlight, he looked at her, turned to the projection of the auxiliary guard, and said softly, "Hello, can you allow me to interrupt, Mr. Shang Tannen, I'm so glad to hear your voice. How are you?" The auxiliary guard grinned. "I'm fine. We're all fine. In fact, my wife and I just had a disagreement over a small matter before going to bed. Now that everything is fine and we're getting ready to go to sleep, there's no need to bother the community to come and mediate on the spot, nor is there any need to use up medical resources to schedule a caregiver. What you just said made us realize the importance of getting enough sleep to maintain health, and this will not happen again." Shang Tannen smiled. "If we have any minor quarrels in the future, try to do it during the day so that it's easier to ask a third party to intervene. Of course, try not to quarrel during the day." "That's right." The auxiliary security lady smiled happily. Who doesn't have any conflicts in their family? But even if they argue a little, they can still be a good couple. "Ms. Feiyu, do you agree?" "I totally agree," Feiyu said crisply. The auxiliary security lady sighed anthropomorphically. "Then you two should go to bed quickly and don't quarrel anymore." "Wait, I have a question," Feiyu blurted out. Shang Tannen patted her sleeping bag and shook her head gently. "I want to ask about the section chiefs." Feiyu stared at him, then turned to the auxiliary security woman in the moonlight. "I'm the section chief of Section 13. Do I have to get up and mediate if the section chiefs of Section 12 have a quarrel in the middle of the night?" It depends on the situation, the auxiliary security woman smiled. If the quarrel becomes so intense that on-site mediation is necessary, and the higher-level section chief is temporarily unavailable, you will indeed assume additional community management responsibilities for the neighboring sections. Additional, yes, as the section chief of Section 13, your on-site mediation responsibilities primarily apply to the residents of Section 13 itself. In other words, if someone in Section 13 quarrels in the middle of the night, I have no choice but to go and mediate, not just at night, but during the day. If the quarreling households prefer on-site mediation, the auxiliary security woman finished her explanation with a smile, then preached a few words about the importance of a harmonious community, urged the two to stop arguing, waved goodnight, and disappeared into the moonlight. Xiong Tanin turned his head, looked at Feiyu with an expressionless face, and chuckled softly. Okay, go to sleep quickly, we'll talk about the future later. Feiyu came back to her senses and glanced at the big bed. She felt that there were so many troubles. She frowned. You said, this bed, I know what you want to say. Xiong Tanin subconsciously lowered his voice, stared and shook his head. Feiyu, don't think too much. You had no problem sleeping alone before, and you won't have a problem now. Feiyu was silent for a while, then raised her eyes and said, you still want to let me sleep? I always think that rotation is best. The weather is very cold. And if there is a problem with health indicators, there will be a lot of trouble. I will tell you when I can't hold on anymore. It doesn't matter now, Xiong Tanin said frankly, got up and urged, go to sleep quickly, or the safety inspector will come to ask again. This is a big problem. Feiyu didn't say anything else, climbed out of the sleeping bag quickly, got directly into the bed, lifted the top bedspread, and lay down in it. Tanin, does the Machine-Assisted Tool Compliance Committee regulate this? She asked in the dim light. No, this isn't a machine-assisted tool. Xiong Tanin understood exactly what she was saying. This should just be considered a daily necessity. Feiyu rolled over heavily on the large, self-heating bed. Chapter 221 New Year's Day. The next day, she woke up peacefully. The next day was the 29th day of the first year of the Luoyang calendar. The calendar department's Festival Affairs Department reported to the Corps Command for approval, and General Shruni personally signed the first festival notice since the Luoyang landing. The first day of the first month of the first year of the Luoyang calendar was the New Year's Day, and the 30th day of each month was a fixed lunar month day. This year's New Year's Day was postponed to the first lunar month day. The entire Corps suspended all operations on the afternoon of the 29th and the entire 30th. Feiyu received a very generous New Year's allowance, which covered a total salary for her day and night shifts in the 10th district of Mamen. Moreover, this allowance was not deposited into the family account like previous allowances, but into her personal account. The Corps was sending New Year's greetings to everyone. She couldn't help but let her eyes wander through her personal account for a while. After all, she hadn't paid attention to her personal account in a long time, ever since she checked out of the Mamen Quanchang Hotel and no longer had to worry about rent. There were no expenses, and the only income was the standard salary from the koala training camp. What a sight. Xiong Tanin, carrying a plain paper bag, got off the bus at Duandongqiao. Brother Kaiong was high in the sky, casting his shadow behind him. The delicate string of the plain paper bag swayed, casting a long shadow on the ground. Tanin, you're off work early today, a voice called from the neighbor's yard. Good morning, everyone. Xiong Tanin tilted his head and smiled. Ming Huang, you're back too. I'm back. My wife asked me to tidy up the yard, but I didn't see much to tidy up, so I just stood there and basked in the sun, so she wouldn't get angry when she came back from visiting and saw me lying at home. Xiong Tanin turned his face away to hide his smile. Then take your time to bask in the sun. He had only taken a few steps forward when Wei Minghuang called him again. Hey, Tanin, tell your sister-in-law that my wife said she's not a good cook, so we'll have to go out to eat tomorrow's dinner and dare not cook. By the way, she wants to set up a stall in the market, and it seems she has already made a reservation on the system. Sorry, okay, I'll tell her. Xiong Tanin responded calmly and went home. Brother Kaiong had polished a piece of Yunqing stone in the yard, which would appreciate in value in 100 years, until it was shiny and bright. Xiong Tanin had read Feiyu's description of the stone that night. He had glanced at it when he went out this morning and again when he came in. Somehow, he felt like laughing. But there was no one in the house. A large lavender blanket was thrown on the big bed. Huh? Shuang Tanan turned his head to look at the wall beside the door. Fei Zi's work backpack was already hung on it. Fei Zi, he stepped out of the room and subconsciously called out in the yard, thinking that she might have gotten off work early and, like the sister-in-law of the Wei family, was bored and went out to visit someone. Here, a cold voice came from the side of the house. Shuang Tanan walked out of the yard, went around the fence, looked in the direction of the voice, and couldn't help laughing in surprise. Why are you sitting here? Fei Zi was sitting against the wall, with a layer of camping cloth spread out, hugging her knees and facing Brother Qi. There's no wind, it's very warm. Do you want to try it? She patted her side. Okay, Shuang Tanan walked over and sat against the wall like her. After a while, a warm current rushed up his back. It was the wall of the dome that absorbed Brother Qi heat and passed it to him. He squinted his eyes, and Brother Qi light directly shone on his face, very warm. Before him lay a vast, undeveloped winter wasteland. There were 1 or 2 depressions, shallowly accumulating the rainwater that had fallen at 5:30 in the morning, quietly reflecting the white light. In Maman, in a little while, Tataking will turn orange. He glanced sideways at Feiyu and asked after a moment, are you homesick? No. I'm just comparing. Feiyu turned her head and said, I look at it every day when I have nothing to do in the non-human tribe, and I've noticed that in the afternoon, Qi color fades from pink to fainter color. What do you think? Shuang Tanan stared into the distance. The large round disc was still shining brightly, casting a glow on the wasteland, seemingly everywhere. Yes, he said, lifting the paper package. Fei Zi, take a look at this. Do you like it? What? Arias's flour cakes. The market is being set up, and the Ministry of Commerce has temporarily requested a shopping guide robot from us. When I went over to see them, there were a few sample stalls set up, so I bought a bag. Try it, someone's already set up their stalls. Isn't it starting tomorrow? Fei Zi asked curiously. It's the Ministry of Commerce's own stall. They're worried tomorrow's event won't be lively enough. Shuang Tanan untied the knotted rope. They did a rehearsal and roped me in as a buyer. The flour cakes were tiny and colorful, with translucent walls and real petals embedded inside. Just looking at them was enough to tempt you. Thank you. Fei Zi generously picked up a piece, sipped it, and praised, very delicate. If you like it, we'll go buy some tomorrow. Shuang Tanan smiled as he held the flour cakes, not forgetting to retell the story of Wei Minghuang's family. There are many people willing to set up stalls, but no one's volunteering to cook. Fei Zi frowned. Ms. Wang, the household group leader, has asked the section chief to encourage each household in the section to ensure that every section has a household cooking. Tomorrow's New Year's celebration, orchestrated by some mastermind, isn't just about watching the singing and dancing. During the day, there's a family exchange market for spare goods, and the entire regiment goes shopping. In the evening, the market closes, and everyone enjoys a buffet. However, the regiment's catering department is only responsible for a portion of the dishes, the rest is being prepared by each household. Have you received feedback from each household? Shuang Tanan held the flour cake closer to Fei Zi. Eat more, almost, Fei Zi said gloomily, taking another piece. She no longer had the heart to admire Brother Qi. She felt that the job of household group leader was unbearable, and she didn't want the few social contribution points she was given each month. When I got home from get off work, I stopped by each household to tell Ms. Wang what she said, but no one wanted to cook. They all said they couldn't. Shuang Tanan felt like laughing for some reason. Feiyu glanced sideways, and he raised his hand to take a piece of flour cake and put it in his mouth, comforting her. Let's finish eating these, and then go back to ask each family. Feiyu shook her head, not optimistic. She pinched the flour cake, staring at the endless fields, pondered for a while, frowned and said, do you want me to cook in the end? As she said that, she suddenly turned her head to look at Shuang Tanan. Shuang Tanan had just swallowed half of the flour cake, and saw this. He swallowed it quickly, met her gaze and smiled. I'm really not very good, but if no one goes, I will find the easiest recipe to sign up later, and I won't care whether other people's taste is pleasant or not. If you want to go, that's fine. Feiyu said frankly, I can cook, but I have to set up a stall, and I'm afraid I won't be able to close it in time. You want to set up a stall too? Shuang Tanan was extremely surprised, and then said, do you want to sell the blanket on the bed? You said at the beginning that this is also a specialty of Maman. Feiyu was uncertain, and studied it seriously. Do you think anyone will buy it? Chapter 222 Luoyang First City. It's a specialty of Maman. But you brought it from Maman so far away, don't sell it. Xiong Tannen urged Feiyu to give up the idea of selling things. What do you want to buy? Just buy it, we still have money in our family account. This exchange market does not require everyone to sell their own things to buy other people's things. Buying and selling are free, I know. I just want to experience setting up a stall and selling, Feiyu said, a little annoyed. There's nothing to be reluctant to give up the specialties of my hometown. My things are all brought from Maman, and other people's things are also brought from their hometowns. This is not a problem. I'm just afraid that a blanket is too monotonous, but I can't find anything else more suitable. My colleagues Niu and Song Ai said that we can also sell clothes. It's not suitable, Xiong Tannen said immediately. I brought clothes of standard sizes, so it should be fine. Xiong Tannen glanced at Feiyu, realizing he wasn't talking about sizes, so he gently advised, don't sell clothes. What made you want to try setting up a stall? The household group leader asked our section chief to urge everyone to participate, and I'm interested myself. Feiyu had a grand plan in mind. Isn't setting up a stall the most primitive way to do business? Of course, she had to practice when she had the chance. By the way, can I borrow Shangyanai from you tomorrow? Maybe I can do a mock-up demonstration. It's not back yet. It's still in the mechanical management department. The robots that were registered and inspected have been sent here in batches over the past 2 days. We're embarrassed to prioritize our own robots, so we can bring them back after work after the holidays. That's fine. Feiyu dismissed Shangyanai from her stall setting plans. No rush, no rush. Business should be done bit by bit. Sell the clothes and blankets first. Seeing that she was determined, Xiong Tannen thought for a moment. It's not appropriate to sell the clothes to others, and you should keep a Maman blanket for yourself. Don't sell them. Let me see if I have anything that I can't use for the time being, and I'll set up a stall with you. Anyway, we are just experiencing this exchange market and contributing a little to the festive atmosphere. What we actually sell is secondary. What do you think? That's the truth. Feiyu nodded. So I took a blanket, but I didn't force it to sell. An idea struck her, and she offered Xiong Tannen an idea. Didn't you bring all the clothes I had made for you? If you don't like them, take this opportunity to try selling one or two. Maybe you can sell them and lighten the baggage. Selling clothes isn't appropriate, indeed. Those are already classic styles, Feiyu apologized, then encouraged. But maybe someone will like them. Luoyang himself doesn't have a style. She raised her chin toward the vast expanse of empty, shivering wasteland below Brother Kyong in the distance. It's a wilderness. Every style we bring can attract people. Xiong Tannen chuckled softly, no longer discussing what to sell or not. He slowly ate the flour cake, gazing at the fields ahead. After a while, he concluded, then our family will sign up for both cooking and setting up a stall. Eat the cake, and I'll sign up online afterward. Feiyu began to eat Alias's flour cake. As she ate, she suddenly remembered her worries. Look! These community-shared tasks are handled by families. If she wanted to step down and abdicate, handing over the title of head of household section to Xiong Tannen, while she remained just his wife, wouldn't she still have to participate? Just look at the head of household section now helping with the stalls and signing up to cook. The title of head of household section's wife seems a myth. Feiyu realized that if the public welfare management position of head of household section fell on her family, no matter who held it, the whole family would have to work hard. Northeast of Shilin Highlands, at the foot of the Mulala Hills, colorful flags were raised. Luoyang's first family idle goods exchange market was unexpectedly popular. For some reason, it seemed every family wanted to join in the fun. A sign scrolled above the makeshift building at the entrance, calling itself the Market Management Office. 5 robots lined up, registering and inspecting items for sale. Long lines formed in front of each bustling with activity. Feiyu, Xiong Tannen, and their neighbors arrived by car, and even the area where the shuttle bus dropped off passengers was packed. Many people were carrying bundles and those who didn't know thought it was another relocation. Slow down, we're not in a hurry, Xiong Tannen, holding a big bag, tugged at Fei's sleeve to prevent her from being caught in the crowd and swept away first. After a short pause, Wei Minghoang and other neighbors were squeezed to the front by the flow of passengers from a car that had just landed next to them, and the houses in Section 13 were separated one by one. It's very spacious inside, there are enough stalls, and there is a mobile expansion area, so there's no need to rush. Shang Tanin had already visited the market yesterday and explained to Fei. Yet, Fei's smile spread, and Shang Tanin was stunned. He thought to himself that she had been particularly cheerful from this morning until now. Fei looked at the lively scene around her, and her heart was burning. In a while, the red headscarf sign of the Shimu family will be erected in Luoyang First City. Dad must be pleased with her efforts. Shang Gad brother. Suddenly, a few calls came from not far away, and the tone became higher and higher. Shang Mom, Feiyu and Shang Tanin paused in step. It had been a month since they landed, and they hadn't heard the familiar voice on the Chuxiu, and they had almost forgotten it completely. Fang Situ, Shang Tanin said in surprise. Isn't it? Next to a commuter bus that had just stopped in the east, the sturdy head of Luoyang Nursery, Fang Situ, had a bag under one arm and raised his other hand high and waved it back, covering most of his wife Hu Jing behind him. Shang Gad, Fang Situ and Shang Jian's eyes met, and they continued to shout all the way. He happily squeezed through the crowd with his wife, and was even more excited when he stood in front of her. He pushed the bag into his wife's arms and patted Shang Tanin's arms with his arms. Oh, there are so many people. I was saying Luoyang is big, cold, and full of rules, and cars aren't allowed to be used casually. If we dispersed, it would take a while for acquaintances and friends to meet up again, but who knew they'd be all packed up today? I saw you two right away, Mr. Shang. Hey, hello, Mrs. Shang. Where are you living now? I live in Fengyang Group 9, Household 10, and I've been down here 4 days. Fang Sita chattered incessantly, and Shang Tanin had no choice but to smile and wait for him to stop before quickly greeting him. Hello, Situ. Hello, Sister Fang. After 4 days, they were still quite new. Fei's eye glanced at the couple. They were probably the last group to land. Sister Fang, are you used to being down here? Fei's eye glanced away from Fang Situ and greeted Hu Jing with a smile. Just getting familiar with the neighborhood, Hu Jing said gently. Shang Mama, Fang Situ, having clapped his hands enough to praise Shang Tanin and not neglecting Feiyu, picked up the conversation again, beaming. Ever since you came down, the sisters-in-law have all wanted to see how you're doing. We've been watching the progress reports every afternoon, and we've been searching for you all day, but we haven't been able to find you. Thank you for your thoughtfulness. My workplace is quite remote. Shang Tanin glanced at Feiyu. He had come down early, and Fang Situ had politely addressed Feiyu as Shang Mama, unaware that she had already earned the nickname Shang Mama. But seeing her calm expression, as if she was used to it, he secretly felt amused and helpless. Now, the two families naturally lined up in the same line. Chapter 223 Descendants of Emperor Yangeozu. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Shang, what are you selling? Fang Sita asked. A blanket and some machine parts. What about you, Situ? A few small toys for the kids. Fang Situ shrugged. I looked everywhere but couldn't find anything to sell. Zion Ahua insisted on participating in this exchange market, so I just picked a few random things to set up. Hu Jing remained silent, standing by with a slight smile, truly a very elegant person. The robot scanned the large bag Shang Tanin was holding. Sir, your items can be sold in the general section, the daily necessities section, or the small accessories section. Which section would you like? Shang Tanin turned his head to look at Feiyu. The small accessories section, Feiyu said decisively. There were plenty of spots available in that section, and people browsing there might be interested in custom robots in the future, making them potential customers. The small accessories section, Shang Tanin naturally agreed. Do you need a sign? Yes. A red headscarf from the Shimu family, Shang Tanin said with a warm smile. Okay, the robot passed a number plate over. You and your wife may enter. The Fang Situ couple lined up behind them. Shang Tanin politely stood aside, expecting the Fang family to register and then enter together. Feiyu naturally waited as well. With joy in her heart, she clicked on the market layout map and selected the stalls by number. She saw that within the square circle of low walls, a long booth and 2 chairs had been raised and put into place. On the red, circular floating shop sign, the brightly colored characters of the Shimu family's red headscarf slowly rotated in circles. Sir, your items can be sold in the general area. The robot scanned Fang Situ's small bag. Fang Situ's eyes turned. Can I reserve a booth in the small accessories area? He pointed with his finger. Our two families are together. Feiyu raised her eyes at the sound of the voice and stared at the robot, waiting to see what it would say. Unexpectedly, the management of Luoyang First City was lax. The robot grinned. Okay, if you don't mind affecting the customer base? No. Feng Sita cheerfully took the stall next to Fixu's and greeted the others. Let's go. Let's talk while we walk. It's not selling well, is it? Fixu glanced at him. It's okay, Hua Jing said, tolerant of Feng Situ, with a gentle smile. Let him be. If he can't sell, he can put it in the nursery in the future. That's right, Feng Situ said without a care. He patted his wife's shoulder and grinned. Xia Ahu is right now. Shang Tanin smiled beside him, holding his large bag tightly in both hands. He praised, Situ, you and your sister-in-law are so dedicated. You even thought of buying toys for the nursery. No, Feng Situ said modestly. Fixu, be careful. Shang Tanin turned and smiled at Fixu. Look, not only did Feng Situ want to set up a stall with her, but he also naturally exuded the intimacy of a couple, which made Shang Tanin and her feel so cold that Shang Tanin had to make up a story to her. Yet, Feiyu replied, followed Shang Tanin's side, and continued to listen to him and Feng Situ chat. Where's the nursery located? Is the construction almost done? No. Nothing at all. Xia Ahu and I have been working at the headquarters for the past 2 days, discussing some details of the nursery with the people from the construction and planning department. Even the address has not been decided. They asked me to choose, and I thought it must be close to the community. Feiyu's heart skipped a beat, and she thought to herself that Feng Situ must not choose the large open space west of her house, otherwise the adults and the babies would be too much to bear with the crying all day long. Have you made any preliminary ideas? She asked seriously. Shang Tanin tilted his head to look at Feiyu, his eyes turned, and a smile appeared at the corner of his lips. Not yet. Those people told me there's no rush, Feng Situ complained. They said I just got down here and I'm slowly adjusting to life on the surface. How can I not be anxious? I can't always be squeezed in there to work. With a nursery, it doesn't matter if we don't have children. Don't you Ahu and I have proper jobs now, it will happen sooner or later, Shang Tanin reassured him. Right now, many departments haven't fully built permanent buildings. Feiyu's unit is still under construction. When I first got down here, I squeezed in at the headquarters with a few colleagues. Really? Feng Situ said happily. Situ, you and sister-in-law haven't been outside yet? Feiyu asked. Mother Shang, you mean outside the protective shield, right? Feng Situ pointed his finger upwards and circled it, a look of regret on his face. Yet, I've been stuffy since I got down here. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Shang, have you all been outside yet? Yeah, Feiyu nodded, exchanging a glance with Shang Tanin. Everyone's first field work obviously comes at a different time. They followed the crowd into the market and found their own stall. Feiyu looked up to admire her shop sign. Shang Tanin opened his backpack, dusted it off, and carefully placed the lavender mom blanket that she insisted on selling on the counter. He then took out a few small robot parts and laid them out one by one. That's it. Feiyu smiled at him, very satisfied. She invited him to sit down with her. The red headscarf of the Shimu family officially opened for business on the 30th day of the first month of the first year of the Luoyang calendar. Today is a good day. The air brushed across the face and hands, a little dry and cold. The sky was great, light blue, and high and far. My grandfather said that my great-grandfather also started his business on a winter morning. Feiyu was in a good mood and told Shang Tanin the family's wealth creation history that she had heard from the old man. My great-grandfather was an interstellar merchant, and it was very hard, no mistakes in one song, one post, one content, one book, one forum. Take a look. It seems that she has a more stable start than her great-grandfather, as she has her own shop. Shang Tanin listened with a smile, and Feiyu was really happy. After a while, Feng Situ from next door called Shang Dad, so she asked Shang Tanin to go over and she sat steadily on the chair behind the counter. That was the boss's seat. However, she didn't know how to greet people. The flow of customers was neither too many nor too few, just like an intermittent stream of water, without the force of a turbulent flow, but still passing by in streams. The faces of the visitors were filled with relaxed smiles. When they came to her shop, they peeked in and looked up. In the square shop, there were a man and a woman. The female owner stared with her big dark eyes, and the male owner, who was sitting against the wall at the other end, would stop chatting with the shop next door and give the customers a smile. The customers' eyes naturally moved to Shuang Tianen's direction, and they smiled back, and usually walked away. At most, they'd point to a component displayed in the front and ask, "What's this for?" A conventional inner shaft coupling for a robot. Shuang Tianen's technical terms were precise. He was a very gentle person, not prone to intimidating pressure. He would always let customers examine the product for a few moments, rather than immediately rushing in with a sales pitch. Even so, customers showed little interest in the conventional inner shaft coupling. After all, personal attendant robots hadn't been fully implemented yet. There weren't even any robots, so why would they need a component? They then point to a blank hit on the side of the booth. "Where's this from, Maman?" Feiyu replied immediately. "Maman, the second commercial planet in the Ta-taking system." Oh, the customer suddenly understood, took another look through the packaging, and asked, intrigued, "How much is this?" "What's special about it?" Shuang Tianen answered, "We haven't decided on a price yet." Oh, the customer smiled and nodded, then moved on to the next store. Before Feiyu could even get up, the customer had left. She wasn't a petty person, so she decided to just leave. They were destined to be together after all. She sat quietly behind the table, waiting for someone to come. She thought back to the time when she bought a blanket and wondered how much she should add to the price to justify it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 224 Not for Sale. As customers passed Feiyu's shop and headed towards Fang's, Feng Situ remained seated, separated from him by a low wall by Shuang Tianen. But he would glance across the border between the two shops with a smile, catching them with a loud, "Hello," then Hua Jing would greet them from behind the counter. Hua Jing was gentle and approachable, meticulously introducing the dolls to the customers. While business hadn't been brisk that morning, it had boosted the popularity of Fang's shop. The total number of customers and the average length of time they stayed at Fang's shop significantly exceeded Feiyu's. Alice, it wasn't what she'd expected. Feiyu sat upright, watching each group of customers pass from Fang's shop to the next. Hua Jing arranged the dolls back to their original arrangement, sat down, and smiled at her. Now, even Hua Jing had no customers. Customers were like mountain spring water in a frozen stream, trickling in, one after another, waiting for the next to thaw. Feiyu could see the experience. She also figured it out. Most of the people were setting up their stalls today, and the remaining half had time to walk around. Not all of them really wanted to buy anything, but just came to see the hustle and bustle. "Jingjing, you've been talking for a long time. It's too tiring. I'm watching the stall. Why don't you go with Shangma and have a look around to see what other people are selling?" Feng Situ said loudly. His family has so many nicknames. Feiyu thought to herself. The more she got to know Feng Situ, the more she heard from him. In the past, he just called her Zia Ahua. Are all other couples like this? I'm not going. I have to watch the stall, she replied immediately. If there was anything to see, she just had to sit down and click on the market information pushed to her. Under each shop, the previously registered products were listed. She could look at any item she wanted. If she wanted to buy something, she could send a message to ask them to reserve it. Why bother? Shuang Tianen suppressed his smile and spoke more smoothly for her. Feiyu wants to sell more, I'll wait a little longer too. Hua Jing glanced at Feng Situ. Otherwise, when customers come, you won't be able to introduce them. Even if you introduce them well, no one wants to buy. Feng Situ was happy to joke with his wife. Seeing that the four of them were bored, he rolled his eyes and looked at the big and red signboard above Feiyu's head. Hey, I just found out, Dad Shuang, do you have another name? Shang Shimu. Shuang Tianen came to his senses and shook his head and laughed. No, I only have one name. I don't believe it. Feng Situ laughed and pointed at Shuang Tianen, forming an arc in the air, and seriously repeated the words on the signboard to Feiyu, his face beaming as if he had learned the latest secret, the red headscarf of the Shimu family. Feiyu's lips twitched imperceptibly. She wouldn't bother telling Feng Situ about her ancestral roots. Hey, they turned to see a group of people arriving at Feiyu's shop. Wow, they were all from the Luo Wen Guard, all dressed in the same uniform. Shuang Tianen raised his eyes, stood up, and greeted them with a broad smile. Commander Qi, Commander Xiao, Commander Gu, hello. It turned out to be Qi Changgong, Xiao Wenfei, and Gu Jia. Gu Jia, who had dealt with Shuang Tanin the most, was the first to say with a smile, Deputy Commander Shuang, hello. Then, turning to Fei Zai, who was standing beside him, hello, Sister Shuang. They all nodded in greeting, and Qi Changgong naturally followed suit. Fei Zai brushed the non-existent dust off her knees and stood up. Hello, commanders. Deputy Commander Shuang's family has opened a shop too. How's business? Gu Jia said jokingly. It's not open yet, let's all enjoy the fun. Shuang Tanin responded warmly. Commanders, are you on patrol? Will you be busy today? No, we need a vacation too. We don't have any official business today, so we came out for a walk. Commanders, you have always worked hard. It's a rare vacation, so you should relax. Deputy Director Shuang, your shop sign is so eye-catching. I noticed it from a distance. I was wondering whose shop it was, Gu Jia praised. Shuang Tanin turned his head and smiled at Fei Su. This is the name of the store my wife came up with. It's really unique and easy to remember. Business will definitely be good. Thank you. Shuang Tanin smiled and greeted the three people in front of him. I don't have many things at home. Please feel free to look at them. Deputy Director Shuang, you really don't leave your profession in everything you do. These are spare parts for robots, right? Yes, there were really not many things on the table. Gu Jia glanced at the blanket again. He had a strong observation ability and exclaimed, produced in Maman? Oh, what a coincidence. He turned his head and stared at Qi Changgong, and said excitedly, Aki, would you consider taking a blanket from Maman? It's a gift from me, your brother. I just happened to do business with Deputy Director Shuang. Don't spend money. Qi Changgong shook his head, his tone quite calm. I don't accept gifts on my birthday. He was smart and knew that she would not sell things to them as gifts. Feiyu sneered, her eyes squinting as she glanced at another group approaching. Seeing people already gathered in front of her shop, the 4 or 5 curious people peeked in for a quick look before heading straight for the store. The Fang Situ couple, who were both free, both started to recruit customers, and the shop next door suddenly became bustling. Potential customers were lost. Feiyu was internally resentful. Aki, the brothers just want to spend money on you. Why are you being so polite? Xiao Wenfei goaded her. He was also a wonderful person. Since landing on the Shilin Plateau, he and Shuang Tanin had met several times for work. He never mentioned Kaolaki's public reprimand. When they met, they always discussed the matter at hand. Today, he was resting, and his solemn expression had faded, making him very approachable. Deputy Secretary Shuang, Sister Shuang, Xiao Wenfei smiled. I remember now, you are from Maman. Sister Shuang participated in a singing performance before we set off and introduced you. Sister from Maman, he repeated, pointing to Qi Changgong beside him. Our Chief Qi also lived in Maman when he was a child. So, you are from the same planet. Fei Su glanced at Qi Changgong, then glanced away lightly, without saying a word, just elegantly leaning beside Shuang Tanin. That's really a coincidence. Shuang Tanin smiled at Qi Changgong generously. Qi Changgong raised his eyes, and his dark eyes cast over. Shuang Tanin met his gaze. His expression did not change at all. What a coincidence, Qi Changgong said. His tone sounded like a casual greeting, but it was hard to tell what he meant. So Commander Qi's birthday is coming up soon. Congratulations, Shuang Tanin also greeted, turning to Gu Jia and Xiao Wenfei. Commanders Gu and Xiao, are you going to pick a gift for Commander Qi? Then you have to pick a good one. I'm so sorry, we have no experience setting up a stall, so we put all our things on the stage in a mess. This blanket is not for sale. He reached out and moved the blanket aside, smiled apologetically, and simply picked it up. He turned around and put it on the chair behind Feiyu, turned around and smiled at everyone again. Qi Changgong's face was expressionless, he just stared at him. Chapter 225, Shang Baobao's Vision. Not selling, Gu Jia asked doubtfully. It's cold, so I brought an extra blanket with me. I want to use it when I set up the stall. I haven't unpacked it yet. Shuang Tanin pointed to the robot parts in the front row, his smile unchanged. My shop sells small accessories, mainly these. I'm so sorry that they're so messy. Sir, are you interested in small robot parts? These are all common accessories. If you have a servant robot to take care of the housework, this energy block and this linkage piece will be useful. Aki, Are you interested in small robot parts? Cao and Feiyu turned his head and teased. Not interested. Qi Changgong frowned and started to leave. What are you two doing? I told you not to spend money. Why are you bothering with these trivial matters? This is not a trivial matter. This is serious. Gujie joked, and asked loudly, Deputy Director Shang, do you have any other good recommendations? Shang Tannen smiled and put the small accessories in his hand back on the stall. I don't have anything else at home. Sirs, you'll have to look for something that suits your taste elsewhere. Sorry. He pointed to the next door. The next few shops seemed to have some special items. Sirs, you can go and have a look. After the people left, Feiyu turned around and sat back on her throne watching the stall. After a while, Shang Tannen brought his chair from the wall, and she looked at him sideways. Don't mind. He sat down, his voice soft. Just let it be. Don't bother each other. I don't mind. Feiyu stared at him, then turned her head to look at the front of the stall. Yes, Shang Tannen also turned to the front, accompanying her to appreciate the market scene. After a while, he asked casually, what do you want to eat later? Do you still want yesterday's flour cake? If you want, I'll go buy it, and you and Mrs. Feng can have it as a snack before dinner. No need. Shang Tannen said nothing more, just sat with Feiyu, watching people coming and going. Qi Changgong was staring at a pile of children's dolls being handed right under his nose in the Feng family's shop. Gujie and Cao and Feiyu were watching with amusement. He tilted his head slightly from the crowd and saw Shang Tannen and Feiyu leisurely tending the stall under the large red scarf sign of the Shimu family. They were a perfect match. In the afternoon, Brother Kaiyong gradually became weaker. Situ, please help me and Sister Feng to look after my shop. The catering department has called me to prepare it. I'm afraid Feiyu can't handle it alone. I can do it, Feiyu said, looking up. Customers were intermittent, and few stopped to ask questions. The workload was not heavy at all. Okay, Shang Gad, you go and make something delicious. Xia Ahu and I will be here when Shang Ma closes the stall. We will take care of everything and take it back for you, Feng Sita shouted back. Feiyu was upset. She hadn't closed her stall yet. It was still peak season, wasn't it? Maybe a sincere customer would come and buy one or two of her items. The restaurant for the big dinner wasn't far away, at the foot of the Mulala Hills, behind the Luoyang market, and across the pass was a large camp fortress of the Luoyang Planet Guard. It was also the final refuge for all conscripted troops in an emergency. The dinner was held at the outermost part of the camp. The guards had opened 6 lookout bastions. And the Festival Affairs Bureau requested some modifications, and today they had specially connected them to form a corridor. Shang Tannen verified his identity and entered. After listening around, he found that most of them were household heads, probably like Feiyu, who couldn't find able-bodied men and had to go into battle on their own. However, Feiyu had called him, while the wives of the headmen had come on their own. As a group of people were huddled in front of the camp, waiting for arrangements, he ran into an old neighbor. Mrs. Jin. Hello, Mr. Shang. Chu Mian, the wife of environmental safety expert Guanqing, was still very gentle. Seeing her, Shang Tannen couldn't help but remember what Guanqing had said, that this sister-in-law was convinced that Feiyu would get along very well. He smiled and exchanged a few pleasantries with Mrs. Jet. Is Guanqing busy lately? Yes, Chu Mian said softly. But he leaves early and comes back late, and his working hours are very regular. Shang Tannen had been neighbors with his sister-in-law for a long time, but they had never spoken much alone. Listening to Chu Mian's words, she smiled to herself. No wonder Mrs. Jia found Feiyu so endearing, they were both sincere and methodical in their conversation. We're quite busy too. We haven't been in touch in a while, Shang Tannen offered. I'm often out and about, monitoring the robot's progress. Feiyu works in her department, and I heard she has a lot to do every day. Now that everyone has landed, they're all busy getting things sorted out. How's Mrs. Shang? Chu Mian asked with concern. Why isn't she coming? She's fine, Shang Tannen smiled. She's setting up a stall. In Luo Wang's Chronicles, the first New Year's Eve dinner was all about meaning, but the dishes were mediocre. The amateur chefs couldn't really create anything particularly impressive. Where's your cooking? Feiyu found her seat. Probably for everyone's convenience, seating was arranged by community section. As a key rule of the grand gathering, the chefs from each section had to present their creations to the other sections for tasting, reflecting the spirit of cooperation and camaraderie that would endure in the years to come. Therefore, Feiyu never got a chance to see Shang Tanin's creations. "It's roughly like this," Shang Tanin said sheepishly, taking a picture. "The cooking robot has instructions." The families of Section 13 were extremely enthusiastic about their husband, Section Chief. They looked at the garbled, blurry picture and drooled, saying that Section Chief would have a great time. In reality, Shang Tanin had ordered a few ingredients. After searching through the recipe collection, the kitchen robot verified that they were safe to combine. It then stirred them together into paste, naming it Moming Snacks. Feiyu silently glanced at the plate of Moming Snacks, conjecturing that, judging by its appearance, this paste would be consigned to the kitchen by anyone with even a little housewife training, like her. She flipped through a dozen or so pictures of other dishes before finally wiping away a smile and looking across at Shang Tanin. "It's pretty good, there are worse ones." Shang Tanin smiled back. "Did you sell anything?" "No." Feiyu hesitated for a moment. Fang Situ insisted on giving us a little stuffed doll that couldn't be sold, and Mrs. Fang was also very enthusiastic about giving it to us. I returned the blanket to them and donated it to the future Zio-caking nursery, and they accepted it. Shang Tanin, holding a fruitcake with a fork, was stunned for a moment and had to say, "Zio-caking nursery? The nursery already has a name." "Yes." Fang Sita gave it to her. Feiyu paused. The people next to her were enjoying the special dishes from who knows which star, so she whispered faithfully. Fang Sita said that if Shuang Bao Bao is capable in the future, he will give Shuang Bao Bao the priority to be the class monitor. Who? Shang Tanin took a bite of the food and almost choked when he thought about it. He looked up at Feiyu. She looked depressed, and knew that he had asked Fang Situ to help look after the shop. Feiyu must have been grabbed by Fang Situ this afternoon, and he had a long lecture on parenting. He wanted to laugh, but held it back, and continued to eat with his head down. In the moonlight, the people of Section 13 got off the commuter bus at Section East entrance. "Goodbye, everyone." Wei Minghuang and his wife from Section entrance waved to everyone and turned into his courtyard. After a while, the lights in the Wei family's dome house came on. "Goodbye, goodbye," said one family after another, and went into the house one by one. Shang Tanin and Feiyu turned their heads to watch the dead couple next door turn into the house, and looked at each other. The greetings along the way suddenly became silent, leaving only the sound of their footsteps. In the sky, two moons were lined up one after the other, and a layer of extremely light and soft night mist was flowing in the wilderness. Feiyu exhaled slowly, and instantly turned into white frost. She waited at the gate of the courtyard and looked back at the road she had just walked. The shadows of the dome roofs of each house were repeatedly covered there, and the moonlight was embedded in it, shining brightly, like a lotus in full bloom. She and Shang Tanin stood at the end of the road under the moon. Feiyu, Shang Tanin pushed open the courtyard gate, turned back, and called out, a smile in his voice. "Go in." "What are you looking at?" "Nothing." Feiyu, clutching the small stuffed doll, sidled into the courtyard. Waiting for Shang Tanin to close the gate, she thought to herself, when she returned to Maman, she would clear out a section of her back garden and pave a path with a pattern like this. It was a distant tribute to her days in Luoyang, which had already passed and were now about to begin. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.